It's the final week to see how you could win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. Make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 29th of August. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Miriam, you can't be serious. Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry on pretending. The numbers just don't add up. We've got to be honest with people. We've got to face the facts. That's what people want.
Well, that's what you get on GB News and on Britain's Newsroom. Lively debates, lively conversation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first, and we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Friday, the 29th of August. I'm Cameron Walker.
And I'm Dawn Neeson, and good afternoon to you.
Judges will today rule on whether asylum seekers can stay at the Bell Hotel in Epping, a decision that could set the tone for battles over migration hotels nationwide.
It's very important. And Asda's chairman blasts Rachel Reeves for taxing everything, urging her to invest in Britain instead of launching fresh tax rates in the looming budget.
And the Angela Rayner house row deepens as it emerges Deputy Prime Minister dodged £40,000 in stamp duty on her new seaside pad.
Well, Angela Rayner hasn't broken any rules at all, but is it really appropriate behaviour for the Deputy Prime Minister and the Housing Secretary? I'll bring you the ins and outs of it shortly.
And for the first time, millions of children will get the chickenpox jab on the NHS as childhood immunisation rates hit an all-time low.
And reports suggest Prince Harry is poised to meet with his father, King Charles, for the first time in 20 months. But will it happen?
And has British cycling taken wokeness too far? The historic, I'm saying this with a straight face, the historic Welsh village of Three Cocks was censored on race schedules, but locals say there is nothing offensive about it at all. Can I just say, hello, first of all, thank you for your company. Really good to have you on a Friday afternoon. Yeah, you've made it Friday afternoon. I've done that Three Cocks thing.
Have you? Have you?
I have, yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah, on a bike.
On a bike.
Yeah, on a bike. Yeah,
And
before
it must
anyone
be
goes off on that direction.
It must be beautiful in the Welsh village of Three Cocks, right?
It is very, very beautiful, very scenic, and I must admit, it does give you a little smile as you're cycling through it.
But it is so stupid. Why did they censor it? Because it's Three Cockerels. The village has been named like that after an old coach inn from the 15th century.
Yeah,
so
I remember
500 years of history. But no, here in 2025, we are not allowed to have that on an official race route for British cycling.
I have, in the interest of research, I have Googled all the rude place names from around the UK, and I'm going to read as many out as I can.
Without Ofcom getting involved. I hate...
It's not many, to be honest with you.
No.
But the serious point of today's show, and it is a really serious point, is we are going to go, hopefully, live to the Court of Appeal to hear that judgment on the Home Secretary versus Eping County Council about those migrant hotels. We're expecting that round about, we hope, 2 o'clock, and we will bring you all of that as soon as we have it. And in the lead up to it as well. Because, frankly, I don't know about you, but I'm angry about it.
I think a lot of people are angry about it. I think they'll feel betrayed if the government wins this appeal. So we'll be live outside the Royal Courts of Justice, and we will be in Epping as well to get the reaction on the ground for you.
Exactly. So let us know what you think about all the stories. Keep them clean. Coming in today at gbnews.com/your-say, and we'll have a chat. It's a Friday afternoon. Anything goes. But first, it's time for the news headlines with Liz Mackenzie.
Cameron Dawn, thank you very much. Good afternoon. It's just after 12 o'clock. Here are your latest GB News headlines. The Home Office has told judges that asylum seekers' rights must come before local planning concerns as it fights to keep migrants housed in the Bell Hotel in Epping. Lawyers for Yvette Cooper say the Home Secretary has a legal duty under the ECHR to prevent asylum seekers from being left destitute. Epping Council claims the hotel breaks planning laws and has fuelled unrest. The Court of Appeal will give their verdict at 2 p.m. today, and if the injunction stands, migrants will have to be moved out, possibly paving the way for more councils to shut down migrant hotels. Labour Cabinet Minister Stephen Kinnock told GB News Breakfast, despite the legal challenge, the government are committed to closing asylum hotels.
If we end up with a disorderly discharge of asylum seekers from these hotels, it will just make the situation even worse. We have to manage that discharge. We are absolutely committed, as it said in our manifesto, that we will end the use of these hotels for asylum seekers. So it's not a question of whether we want to do this. We are absolutely committed to doing it. It's a question of how we manage it in a controlled and orderly and managed way.
But the Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, Matt Vickers, says the hotel must be closed as soon as possible.
The Conservative councillors who brought this case forward and got that injunction are right. This case is literally a case of this Labour government against the British people. It is an atrocious situation that the Home Secretary, well, the government is saying that the rights of people who've broken into this country should come before those law-abiding residents in that area. It's completely wrong. We've seen some of the allegations of what's gone on in terms of sexual assault and things at the hotel. That community is terrified. People are afraid for their women and children to be going around in their own communities. Not acceptable. The place needs closing. It needs closing tomorrow.
The government has told a contractor to remove jobs from a recruitment website after it emerged that there were plans to hire tutors for failed asylum seekers at a migrant removal centre. First reported by the Sun newspaper, adverts for the jobs included a hospitality tutor whose job it would be to teach skills including flower arranging, cake decorating and balloon craft. It's been reported Prince Harry will meet with his father, King Charles, for the first time in 20 months when he returns to Britain in 2 weeks' time. Harry is expected to be in London on the 8th of September for the 3rd anniversary of Queen Elizabeth II's death, where he will also attend the Well Child Awards, a charity event he avidly supports. All young children in England and Wales will be offered a free chickenpox vaccine on the NHS from January of next year. It will be given as 2 doses, a 12 and 18 months of age, combined with the existing MMR jab, which protects against measles, mumps and rubella. A secondary catch-up campaign is planned for slightly older children, so they don't miss out. US Vice President J.D. Vance has told Brits to, quote, push back against the crazies who were offended by the flying of Union flags and St George's flags. The Vice President's remark come after he was asked to comment on the Operation Raise the Colours campaign that has swept the nation in recent weeks. The Republican politician was asked if he had seen how the St George's flag has simultaneously become controversial and patriotic. Mr Vance responded by saying it's in fact a good thing to be proud of your country. And a rare snow leopard cub has taken her first playful steps outside at Chester Zoo. After receiving thousands of name suggestions, the zoo visitors and online followers around the world, conservationists have chosen the name Berry after the river that runs through Nepal, where you would usually find snow leopards in the wild. With as few as only 4,000 snow leopards estimated left in the wild, it's welcome news for the survival of the species. Well, those are your latest GB News headlines for now. Let's take a look at the markets.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3462 and €1.1533. The price of gold is at £2,531.20 and the FTSE 100's at 9,189 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is just coming up to 9 minutes past midday. Your main story today, obviously, is the Home Office has told judges that asylum seekers' rights must come before local concerns. That's our concerns, by the way, as it fights to keep migrants housed in the Bell Hotel in Epping.
Lawyers for Yvette Cooper say the Home Secretary has a legal duty under the ECHR to prevent asylum seekers from being left destitute. But Epping Council claims the hotel breaks planning laws and has fueled unrest. The Court of Appeal will give their verdicts during this show at 2 o'clock.
So joining us now is GB News Home and Security editor Mark White, who is at the Court of Appeal. Oh, no, he's not. Actually, no, he's in our Westminster studio. Even better. Mark, what's happening?
Yeah, hi, good afternoon to you. Yeah, the judges said yesterday they absolutely appreciated the urgency of the decision that they have to make, given that there are asylum seekers currently in the Bell Hotel in Epping who will have to be moved out of there under current plans by the 12th of September. But it was going to be tight to get this decision by 2 o'clock. We haven't heard that it's not happening at 2, so hopefully we'll still be able to bring that decision to you at 2 o'clock. Clearly, right across the country, people are braced for that decision and what the potential implications will be, because one of the arguments put forward by the Home Office lawyers is that if this decision was allowed to stand, this injunction that meant that these asylum seekers had to leave this hotel by the 12th of September, then it could open the floodgates. It could be a precedent where other local authorities looked at this same narrow planning rule and whether hotel groups had applied for planning permission for change of use from hotels that are open amenities to the community to effectively an asylum hostel. And we've heard, of course, from a number of local authorities who have said that they are doing just that now. They have instructed their legal counsel to look at whether they have a case that can be brought on planning regulations that could be a way for them to ensure that they can close down a troublesome migrant hotel in their particular area.
It's going to be absolutely fascinating outcome, isn't it, Mark? Because whatever way this judgment goes, there is going to be a large group of people who are very, very unhappy.
Yes, there's no doubt about it. If it goes against Epping Forest District Council, having last week gone in their favour, then there'll be very many disappointed people down in Epping, and understandably so. There was a protest outside the hotel there just last night, and there is another protest that is planned outside the hotel for this evening. And of course, we're seeing protests right across the country now. They have gathered impetus in recent weeks because of what is being played out in Epping, at Canary Wharf in London, other key locations where there have been some real concerns about allegations of criminality that have been linked to asylum seekers in those hotels that are very concerned local people, and brought them out protesting. And of course, as I say, it has sparked a new wave of protests right around the country. Many people around the country were pinning their hopes on Epping being that test case, that precedent that would allow them to ensure that hotels in their areas could be challenged as well. And if it goes clearly against the Home Office, well, they have got as a matter of urgency now to find a place for the 138 asylum seekers in that Bell Hotel. That shouldn't be too difficult because, of course, on a good day, many times that number can cross the English Channel and they find accommodation for them quickly enough. So they will be able to do that. But there's the more pressing question of, if it does go against the Home Office, then will that lead to a flood of other potential legal challenges? And if so, then they need to really expedite this process that they tell us they're embarked on, but seem to have made very little headway, that process of closing down migrant hotels themselves, ending the use of migrant hotels by the end of this Parliament. The truth is, since Labour came into power, they've made very little headroom, or headway, I should say, in doing that. It's pretty much the same number of asylum seekers in asylum hotels, in fact, slightly more than there was under the Conservatives.
Mark, thank you very much. Mark White will be joining us throughout the show to bring us up to date on any decisions that hopefully we are expecting that decision from the Court of Appeal at 2 o'clock today. OK, now we're banding around, not just us here, but everyone, the phrase European Convention of Human Rights. Like, it's really simple. We all know what it means and what it does. But do we? Now, the government in this case are using the European Convention of Human Rights to argue their case. So to explain exactly what is going on here is human rights lawyer Shabib Khan. Shabib, thank you very much for joining us today. Shab, sorry. We use the phrase European Convention of Human Rights all the time. Now, the government, from what I understand, are using Article 3 of the European Convention, which establishes fundamental human rights for migrants, basically. But this means that migrants are trumping the rights of local people. Can you explain a little bit about what's going on here?
Yeah, hi, thanks. So, I mean, just to say Article 3, obviously it's not about the human rights of migrants. It's, I mean, as with human rights, it's the rights, specific rights for all people. And there's lots of claims that obviously have been brought and succeeded on Article 3 for all categories of people. So, but basically the argument the Home Office is making here is that essentially if all the hotels suddenly had to be closed down, all these people had to be evicted from there, they don't have these, huge sources of accommodation, then these asylum seekers would basically be destitute, they would be homeless, they would be brought onto the street. And that would then breach these asylum seekers' human rights, because obviously it's the government's obligation or duty to house them. And obviously it's not fair, it's not right, it's against human rights for these people to be basically put onto the street. So that's basically the basic human rights argument that they're making, that whatever the planning permission situation, and of course, just to be clear, of course, it is the planning permission argument that succeeded in court. It's not about these people are dangerous, it's not about these people are committing crime, it's not about these people are destroying our country. None of that was actually argued or succeeded in court. And like we just heard, it was just a very narrow planning permission argument about, these are hotels, they suddenly being converted into asylum seeker accommodation, and that's not right. And so the government is basically saying but by, regardless of the planning permission argument, by making these very vulnerable people homeless, and we would be breaching the human rights.
Sharp, one of the arguments against the ECHR is that it was formed and signed in the 1950s in the aftermath of the Second World War, and we all know the horrific human rights abuses that took place during that time period. The argument now, of course, is that the ECHR is out of date for the modern migration crisis. There are so many people wanting to come to this country for whatever reason, whether fleeing persecution or economic reasons, coming across the channel. And therefore, some would argue it's not kind of fit for purpose because there's an over-interpretation of Article 8, rights to a family life. What do you say to that?
Yeah, so there's a number of things. I mean, firstly, I think we're talking about, obviously, the atrocities of the World War. But to be honest, look around the world now. I don't think we're in a much, much better situation. I mean, there are millions of people right now, whatever the legal term, whether it's genocides or massacres or generally mass killings, mass tortures in all sorts of countries. Some countries, women are safe. Some countries, children are safe. Some countries, no one is safe. So, I mean, I don't think we're in really a better position where suddenly we don't need human rights. All the governments are fantastic. There's no evil regimes around the world. No one's trying to kill anyone. We don't really need human rights anymore. Everyone gets on really well together. So I don't agree with that basic premise anyway. But secondly, having said that, if we're saying that, one argument made, like you just suggested, against ECHR is that, it's interpreted by judges and it's interpreted widely and it's reinterpreted with evolving time. But I think that's what happens, and especially, being from the common law jurisdiction, English law, many of our laws is centuries old. It doesn't mean every time a new parliament comes in, we update all our laws or we cancel all repeal all the old acts, and suddenly, we have a new law on everything every year. That's not how it works. But every judge, they look at the situation and say, okay, in 2025, how do I interpret the law of murder now? How do I interpret the law regarding rape now? How do I deal with financial fraud now? And that's the thing. So the basic law is always many, sometimes centuries old. But obviously that's the whole point about the law. And that's why we need judges, because in each case they decide, in this case, how do I apply the law here?
Sharp, just one very, very quick final question. We're talking about the rights of vulnerable individuals. This is what this case is about. What about the rights of vulnerable people living in Epping?
So two things there. I mean, firstly, I think it's very interesting suddenly seeing so many people celebrating unelected random judges overturning a decision of a democratically elected government. I thought for so many people on the right, that's the biggest threat there is to democracy when judges interfere, but suddenly now they're celebrating this. So I think that's an interesting point anyway. But secondly, what you're saying, so that's the thing. I think what we have to be strong about, and that's what human rights says, that we all, everyone, whatever side you're on, we have to be united against the government to ensure human rights for all of us. And that's the thing. Human rights is not a competition. Just because I'm demanding my human rights doesn't mean you're losing yours. Just because the government gives you yours doesn't mean they're taking away mine. So the point is keeping people safe, British people safe, everyone in the UK safe, is a duty of the Home Office, of the government. We have to make sure they do that.
People in Epping don't feel safe, and that's why we're seeing all of these protests taking place.
Of course they don't feel safe, because we've decimated the legal system, we've decimated public security, there's no policemen left. We know all these things, but that's the point. Because we're too busy spending money on weapons and developing our nuclear arsenal, doing all that, there's absolutely billions when we need it for those things.
I think we're going slightly off topic there, but thank you very much for joining us, human rights lawyer Shoaib Khan. Well, I'm sorry, I'm still not convinced. I'm sorry, I still think this feels like a game of trumps.
Well, it seems...
And we're not winning.
It seems incredibly polarised. Do let us know your views on that, of course, gbnews.com/your say.
OK, now thousands of pounds are being spent on employing staff to teach skills such as balloon art, cake decorating and floristry to migrants awaiting deportation.
Sounds like a holiday. Well, the Heathrow Immigration Removal Centre has 32 job vacancies, including tutors for hairdressing, floristry and a gym manager.
These full-time roles come with salaries of over £30,000, with the gym manager earning up to £39,000.
Well, joining us now to go through this is GB News' political correspondent Catherine Forster. Good afternoon to you. Total salaries costing the taxpayer £165,000 a year. How was this allowed to slip through the net? Because the government is opposed to this.
Yes, front page of The Sun, a story that I actually think you literally couldn't make it up because it's so insane. But what's happened is the government subcontract various obligations that they have. And there's this Heathrow Immigration Removal Centre. It can house nearly 1,000 men. These are people whose asylum claims have been turned down. They are waiting to be deported. But while they are there, this company are advertising for people, including a hospitality and floristry tutor, to teach them about balloon craft, making balloon animals and so forth, cake decorating and flower arranging. Now, this has come to light. The Home Office, in fairness to them, the Home Office Minister, Seema Malhotra, has said these jobs must be removed. The government admit that this is clearly vastly over-interpreting what could be used. But, you know, the Conservatives having a field day saying it's just absolutely insane. And I think many people would agree. How is this justifiable use of taxpayers' money?
Yeah, spoiler alert, it's not a good use of taxpayers' money. Catherine Forster, thank you so much for that. OK, and now we move on. A spokesperson for Angela Rayner. Oh, we haven't talked about Angela Rayner, have we?
No, we haven't.
We haven't, no. We will talk about Angela Rayner later on. That's all to come. It's exciting, isn't it? But we have got some good news for you. There's a similar link. It's the final day to see how you could be a winner in our latest Great British Giveaway. A winner just like Jane from Manchester, who won our biggest cash prize so far. Here's a moment we gave her the good news. I love this.
Jane, are you sitting down?
No, I don't. I'm not believing this.
Jane, you've won £54,321.
Please don't joke. This would change my life.
Jane, you have won £54,321 with GB News. Congratulations.
Oh, my God. Oh, my, do you know what? I've just been shopping and I've got £50 to last me till the 31st of August. And I was trying to work things out.
Go and sit down, have a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath. That money is coming to you, all right?
Oh, my God, thank you so much.
God, Jane, we are so pleased for you.
I love you. I hope, honestly, I hope you're spending that very wisely. We're talking about vulnerable people, the court case that's going on at the moment, the Court of Appeal, vulnerable migrants. What about people like Jane, proper vulnerable people who have contributed to this economy their entire life, down to their last £50?
And I fear there are many more Janes out there who weren't lucky enough to win.
Yes,
but
indeed.
You, of course, could be our next winner with your mortgage or rent paid for a year plus £5,000 in cash. Here's all the details.
It's the final day to see how you could win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. And if you don't have a mortgage or rent to pay, lucky you, we'll give you £15,000 tax-free cash instead. Lines close at 4 p.m. today, so don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Why do you think that era of telly is so fondly remembered by viewers? Do you think it's just how warm and friendly?
Well, of course it was.
Came through.
Well, it was very
Well, I'll tell you why.
on.
There was more people. You had more to say. You could be more off script, the way we are in GB News. But today, you just get people who are told because of wokeism, don't say this, don't do that, and do read the script and stick to it. So you get presenters now who have got much less personality and much less risk.
Well, they're risk averse, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's the whole point. Is that probably nowadays I'd have been sacked within 2 months.
Well, I like to think it's because we did our homework, didn't we? You know, we went on there knowing what we were talking about. And we challenged people in a friendly but firm way, you know.
John, I remember presenting with you, which would never happen today. You and I presenting GMTV in the morning, right? And you would never have two men now. Don't ask me why. You could have two women doing it, but you would never have two men. And this man, to me, he was always the governor. It wouldn't matter if I was given, it was my role. I was beside him. That was John Stapleton. I said to him, you're the boss. You do what you do. He was the senior guy. Still respect him and look up to him. What do you think of what you see on TV today?
Well, I'm not as critical as you, perhaps. I think there's still some damn good programmes on TV, some very good documentaries, and I think most people in the news area do the level best they can and are very competent. So I hate to sit in judgment, but I do watch the news like you, I'm sure, in a very meticulous way, thinking, why are they saying that? Why have they put that there? Why have they put this here? But, you know, we're out of it. It's over. For me, it's over. So there's no point in sitting there harping about what's going on now.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Good Afternoon Britain. The time is 12:28 and Rachel Reeves has been urged to stop taxing everything by the boss of one of Britain's biggest supermarket chains.
Yeah, as the Chancellor considers another round of tax hikes, the chairman of Asda has warned surging costs in the wake of the last budget are battering businesses and the middle classes.
Well, joining us now is the business journalist Ian King. Ian, good afternoon to you. How much notice traditionally do chancellors, or particularly Rachel Reeves, take to business warnings?
Well, on the basis of what Rachel Reeves has done so far in office, you'd say not a great deal. You obviously had this sort of prawn cocktail offensive when Labour were in opposition. Business leaders were wooed pretty widely by both Rachel Reeves and Jonathan Reynolds, who's obviously now the business secretary, as well as Keir Starmer himself. And then completely out of the blue, the Chancellor hit businesses with a rise in national insurance contributions, employers' national insurance contributions in the budget last year, and we're still really feeling the after effects of that, and that is what Alan Layton, the chairman of Asda, is alluding to.
And he's not alone, is he? I mean, there is much unrest in the business community. I mean, how confident are you that businesses will survive the next budget?
Well, you're already seeing big increases in the number of businesses that have folded over the last 12 months. It wasn't just the fact that the rate of employers' national insurance was increased. It was crucially the threshold at which national insurance kicks in for employers. That came down to £5,000 a year. And at that point, it starts to hit temporary workers, part-time workers. And of course, for retail and hospitality, there are an awful lot of people in that sector who work on that basis. So it's pushed up the cost of employing a lot of these people, and that is feeding through. If you look at food price inflation, that hit 4.2% this month in food and drink inflation. That's the highest level since February 2024. And the British Retail Consortium, which is the industry body, says that is going to be probably going to hitting 6% later on this year.
Rachel Reeves would probably argue that she has to plug a £50 billion black hole, and she's saying she's not going to raise income tax or national insurance, although, of course, he talks about the other one, and VAT. So she's got to find the money from somewhere, doesn't she?
Well, essentially, there are three ways that a government can raise money. One is by increasing taxes, the other is by borrowing, and the third, which people often forget about, is through privatisation of state assets, which we did obviously in the 80s and 90s pretty successfully. But effectively, borrowing more money is out of the question. If you look at the premium that the bond markets are now asking for in terms of in return for lending to the UK, that's pretty high right now. So effectively, she's got to either go to taxes to keep with her fiscal rules, or she's got to cut public spending. You had that big rebellion by Labour backbenchers earlier this year when she tried to push through some £5 billion worth of welfare cuts. So really, it only leaves tax increases as the place to go. As I say, she's already gone to the well once there in the last 12 months.
And Ian, businesses are also facing Angela Rayner's Workers' Rights Bill, which is coming in. What effect is that going to have?
Well, again, that just really adds to the regulatory burden when you take on new employees. It makes it very, very risky, particularly for smaller businesses, to take people on, because obviously the package of proposals that Angela Rayner has put forward would be day one workers' rights. So effectively, on your first day in employment, you're entitled to the full panoply of rights and protections that currently exist to workers who've only been in a job for between 12 and 24 months. So it's going to make it much, much riskier to take someone on. An employer is going to be taking an awful lot on in trust when they do hire someone. And for small businesses in particular, that is very, very risky.
Gosh, it's such a turbulent time. Business journalist Ian King, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. There's loads more coming up on today's show.
1 in 14 passengers are dodging fares across London, costing taxpayers almost £190 million a year. Are we too soft on these fare dodgers? All of that and much more after your news headlines.
Good afternoon. Here are your half-past headlines. The Home Office has told judges that asylum seekers' rights must come before local planning concerns as it fights to keep migrants housed in the Bell Hotel in Eping. Deputy Chairman of the Tories, Matt Vickers, says the hotel must close now.
That community is terrified. People are afraid for their women and children to be going around in their own communities. Not acceptable. The place needs closing. It needs closing tomorrow.
The government has told a contractor to remove jobs from a recruitment website after it emerged that there were plans to hire staff to teach failed asylum seekers skills like floristry, cake decorating and balloon craft. All young children in England and Wales will be offered a free chickenpox vaccine on the NHS from January of next year. US Vice President J.D. Vance has told Brits to, quote, push back against the crazies who are offended by the flying of the Union flag and St. George's flag. Well, those are your headlines for now. More from me at 1 o'clock.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, very good day to you. This is your latest GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. For many of us, today's going to be another showery day, but in the south it's actually got off to an even wetter start. That's because a weather system has been pushing its way from west to east overnight and through this morning. It's starting to clear away towards the east, but nonetheless some fairly persistent rain affecting parts of the southeast of England for a little while yet. Could be a bit of thunder mixed in with this. Elsewhere, like I said, lots of showers on offer. These feeding in from the west, so western areas seeing the most frequent showers, the heaviest, most thundery ones as well. And watch out for some blustery winds. The winds will take the edge off the temperatures, which are lower than they have been through recent weeks, but still just about scraping into the low 20s. So if you catch any decent sunny spells in the shelter from the wind, not feeling too bad. Plenty more showers to come as we go through this evening across much of Scotland. It's a showery theme, albeit the far east, parts of Aberdeenshire, for example, may stay largely dry. Showers continuing across north Northern Ireland and also across much of England and Wales, though the showers are gradually going to be easing and clearing away as we go through the rest of the evening and overnight. Some showers will continue, however, across some western coastal parts in particular. Here they could linger. Elsewhere, many areas turning largely dry, and there will be some clear skies around, and with the clear skies, rural spots are likely to turn a bit fresh, perhaps, could just about drop into single digits, but many towns and cities holding up in double figures, so not an especially fresh start to the day on Saturday. And it is looking like quite a fine start to the day for many of us. Good deal of dry and often sunny weather around through the beginning of the morning. However, a band of rain is going to feed in from the west, initially affecting parts of Northern Ireland, but then feeding into parts of Scotland, England and Wales. And this rain's looking quite heavy, and it's going to have some strong winds on it as well. And with the wet and windy weather, feeling quite a bit fresher.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The A835 in Ullapool is closed due to a serious collision. Motorists should seek alternative routes and allow extra travel time. The M6 southbound between junctions 16 and 15 faces major delays after an incident. In Nottinghamshire, the A1 northbound between the A52 and A46 closes one lane with 20-minute delays. Be aware of a broken-down vehicle on the M62 eastbound between junctions 11 and 12 in Salford, affecting one lane. And on the trains, Great Western Railway and Heathrow Express services are disrupted at London Paddington. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 12:37. Londoners are losing out big time as fare dodging hits record highs. And this isn't just London, it's across the country as well, but we're talking about...
And it's completely infuriating because new figures show 1 in 14 passengers isn't paying, which is costing the taxpayer nearly £190 million.
Transport for London says the selfish cheats push up prices for honest travellers, while politicians argue over whether tougher action is the only answer.
Well, joining us now is the former Detective Chief Inspector David McKelvey. David, good afternoon to you. I see this probably once on average every couple of weeks, somebody pushing through the barriers of a London Underground station. Why is it happening in such plain sight, and why does it appear to be rising? There's no consequences at the moment, it appears.
No, I think it's part of the wider debate about crime, particularly crime in London. You know, we're seeing this lawlessness all over the place. You're seeing it in shoplifting, you're seeing it on the streets, and it just follows the same narrative that people expect to get away with committing crime these days. Like you, I don't think I've been on the tube recently when I haven't seen someone either jump over the barriers or barge through the barriers behind someone. I think it's probably far worse than what's been reported. And it's similar to shoplifting. It's massively underreported.
And David, I mean, like both of you, I see it happen pretty much on a daily basis where I live in London. But I also see plenty of staff standing around. It's not that there's a lack of staff standing around, not doing anything about it.
Yeah, unfortunately, again, it's a similar scenario to shoplifting, where staff and even security are instructed not to get involved, due to the risks. And so they do stand by. I challenged someone not so long ago, and, there was a member of TfL staff standing there, and I literally said, "What are you going to do about this?" And he looked at me and said, "Nothing." And I had no choice. I had to let him go. It's a terrible state of affairs when we've got a situation where, literally criminality is able to take place at will.
So the Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick, has put the blame on Sadiq Khan's, in Sadiq Khan's corner, the Mayor of London. And he also says that urges Sadiq Khan to adopt what Rudy Giuliani, as Mayor of New York, did in the 1990s, this so-called broken windows policy, i.e. you're really tough on the small, insignificant things, such as fare dodging, and that has an impact, the theory goes, on preventing the much higher, the much more serious crimes like violent crimes. What do you make of that?
Absolutely, that's what we do as a day job every single day. My local Bobby does exactly that. We follow a broken windows policy, and Giuliani proved it works. In New York, he started on the railways and expanded out into New York City, and he cleared up crime. And that's exactly what we do in my local Bobby. In the areas that we police, we deal with everything. We deal with the graffiti, the litter. If you make somewhere look safe and feel safe, it automatically rolls on that people feel safe all the time.
But it's not happening, really, because London is still perceived as lawless London.
It is happening. It's happening in the areas that we police, definitely. The message we get every single day, I literally every day, I get messages from our community saying it's the first time we felt safe in a long time. We know that one of our bobbies, one of your bobbies, will be there within 2 minutes. It's simple, old-fashioned policing. It's what the police need to get back to. Community policing, have a real police officer on the streets who can attend, be there within minutes, and is there to see what's going on. A uniform presence, it works. If you go to any other city in Europe, America, anywhere, you'll see police officers everywhere in uniform. If you walk around London, you won't.
David, obviously the argument here is we simply do not have enough officers, certainly enough visible officers on the beat, on our transport networks, because we don't have the budget for it. What's the answer?
And you're absolutely right. That's the reality. The reality is, have you seen, the Commissioner highlighted some months ago, you're about to lose 3,400 more police officers from London. The reality is they are under-resourced and they are chasing their tails. They're about to disband burglary and robbery teams and specialist crime teams in London, which means, if they're not going to deal with burglary and robbery, they're hardly going to deal with, fare evasion, shoplifting, and the other sort of, I say lower level crimes. It's not lower level crimes. This is the stuff that impacts on the people of London every single day.
Do you think it's kind of a postcode lottery in a sense? As in, there are certain places within London or within the United Kingdom where, as you say, they are very tough on crime, the local bobbies, but certain parts of the UK or indeed London, they feel like they are more likely to get away with it than not. Is it the inconsistency that could be the issue here?
I don't think there is inconsistency. I think it is consistent across London. Someone tried to rob me literally at the back of Oxford Street only a few weeks back. It's everywhere. There aren't areas that are better than others. Day in, day out, we see those issues, and we are constantly being called by communities across London in some of the wealthiest areas and some of the more difficult areas, asking for us to put beats in because they know they haven't got a police presence, they know they're not going to get a police presence, and they know that what we do works.
David, just finally and quickly, obviously we're talking about preventing this, but the causes of it in the first place. When I was a kid, I wouldn't have dreamt of doing anything wrong. But now we seem to have a complete lack of respect for our forces of law and order and a lack of respect for one another. We have to start looking at ourselves here as well.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. It's down to all of us, and until people pull together and start supporting the police. All you see all day long on social media is people standing there with cameras as police officers are trying to stop and search people and do their jobs. Yeah. Or you see a police officer, rolling around the floor trying to arrest someone, and people just standing there filming it. Nobody is supporting the police anymore. And also there is a fear within policing. There is a fear within policing that if we get involved now, we will potentially get a complaint, we will get a misconduct board, and we will lose our job. And that is causing significant issues in policing at the moment.
Yeah, and as you say, everyone's got a mobile phone with a camera now.
Well, exactly. Yeah, everyone's against the police rather than on the police's side. They're doing an amazing job. David McKelvey, thank you very much. That's former Detective Chief Inspector. I witnessed this literally once outside a tube station in London. Police were arresting a chap and everyone was going, oh, that's outrageous, police brutality. And the police pulled out a machete 2 foot long from this lad's tracksuit bottoms. And everyone was going, oh, right, we see why you're doing that. But that's the attitude we face. Any case, Transport for London say fare evasion takes away vital revenue from us and denies Londoners investment in a safe, frequent and reliable transport service. We are taking a bold, target-driven approach to tackling fare evasion and aim to reduce the fare evasion to a rate of under 1.5% by 2030. Most of our customers, over 96%, pay the correct fare for the journeys that they make. It is not fair for our customers that a selfish criminal minority refuse to pay.
Indeed. Well, let us know what you think about that. gbnews.com/your say. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show.
Yeah, has British cycling taken wokeness too far? Straight-faced on. The historic Welsh village of Three Cocks was censored on race schedules, but locals say there's nothing offensive about Three Cocks.
Now, if you're in search of some winter sun, here's a forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Loads of sunshine and offer across the eastern Mediterranean. A few heavy showers in southern Italy and across Croatia. And the same weather system bringing the UK some wet weather on Saturday will also bring some rain to northernmost parts of Spain and Portugal. But most of Iberia dry, fine and sunny. Heavy showers in central and southern Italy and pretty wet in Croatia as well. Further heavy showers to come in Dubrovnik on Sunday. They should be clearing by Monday. Sunny skies in Barcelona.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Miriam, you can't be serious. Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry on pretending. The numbers just don't add up. We've got to be honest with people. We've got to face the facts. That's what people want.
Well, that's what you get on GB News and on Britain's newsroom. Lively debates, lively conversation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first, and we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is nearly 10-1. Now, British cycling has been left somewhat red-faced after allegedly censoring the name of the historic Welsh village, Three Cocks, from its race listings.
Can't see the issue. Locals and fans branded the move "wokeness gone mad," pointing out the village has proudly carried the name for centuries, inspired by 3 cockerels. Not the crude slang, obviously.
Yeah, perish the thought. So we are joined now by owners of the 3 Cocks Inn, Jessica and Julia Palmer, mum and daughter. Jessica and Julia, thank you so much for joining us. So, I mean, come on, tell us a bit more about this story. You must get some stick as well about the name of the inn you run.
Yes, we do actually. We get quite a lot of guests come to stay just purely because of the name, which is quite funny, really. But the name of the 3 Cocks Coaching Inn came from the Williams family. So the Coaching Inn was part of their estate in the 15th century. And their coat of arms was the 3 Cocks, so that's where it came from, really.
And what did you make? When did you first find out that British Cycling had censored the name of your inn and the village?
Oh, I did think it was, well, we thought it was quite ridiculous, didn't we?
Yeah, a little bit unnecessary.
And what about the locals who come into your pub? Are they amused by the name? Do they not care? Are they indifferent? Do you ever get funny looks from, people who pass by? Because it is quite a popular tourist route for cyclists and walkers.
It is.
Yes, it is quite a popular destination. We do, like I said, we get people coming here because of the name, and lots of people, they pass by, so we're on the main road to take photos of the sign. But yeah, we do.
Yeah, we get lots of cyclists actually stay here. We're on, must be on a popular route. Often they stay here, so we have, charging facilities for their bikes as well and safe storage. So yeah, it came as a bit of a shock, really, that we're just a bit unnecessary, because it's just a place name, as there are many place names with dual meanings then.
And of course it is part of the great British sense of humour. I mean, Carry On, Benny Hill, which are probably censored now as well. But if we can't have a laugh at some of the, as you say, very historic place names we have in there in the UK.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, there's actually there's a few in the area, to say the least, isn't there, that have maybe dual meanings. But there's a local walk, isn't there, a mountain that's called Lord Hereford's Knob. So a lot of our guests actually go there as well.
I bet they do. They're doing a whole tour of the area for all the rude names.
Yeah.
To be honest.
That's so good. How old is the building? How old is the inn?
So it's actually 500 years old.
Wow.
Gosh, that's incredible.
I know, so it is, yeah.
And I suppose, a lot of history surrounding that as well, presumably. What kind of do you have on offer at the pub?
What kind of what, sorry?
What do you have on offer at the pub? You mentioned you have facilities for cyclists. I'm assuming lots of people just come in for a casual drink, meals.
So we don't actually have a restaurant here. So at the moment, we are just doing kind of bed and breakfast, essentially. So rooms and breakfast. But we do have, like we said, we've opened a boot room, as we call it, for cyclists and walkers and things like that. But we have lots of kind of, because it was originally a restaurant and pub. So we do have quite a lot of space here for lounge areas for guests to go.
Yeah.
With a upcoming Honesty Bar as well.
OK, that's brilliant. Jessica and Julia Palmer, they're owners of the 3 Cocks Inn. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Get a sense of people, get a sense of humour, people.
Get a sense of humour.
Oh, Lord.
Anyway, British Cycling have commented on this story. They say, "We apologise for this accidental censorship, which was caused by some overly sensitive filters on our website. Clearly, the system decided inappropriately to spare our blushes and also censored the historic 3 Cocks village from the junior race of South Wales. Whilst it's great to see this fantastic event getting such national attention, we'll be having serious look at the new systems we're implementing to ensure that technology doesn't override common sense in future."
Well done. Right.
Well done.
Off to 3 Cocks for a quick pint.
Here's the weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, a very good day to you. I'm here with your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Many of us will see a fair few more showers to come as we go through the rest of today, but then tomorrow there's a band of heavy rain that's going to sweep its way in. That's in association with a frontal system currently waiting out in the Atlantic. Before that though, it is a showery picture as we go through the rest of today. Yes, there'll be some sunny spells in between the showers, but some of the showers could be quite heavy, maybe even thundery. Then later on we're going to see the showers generally easing and clearing away, but some showers continuing across western coastal parts in particular. Other places, more central eastern areas, turning largely dry, some clear skies, but towns and cities not seeing temperatures dropping too low, most places holding up in double figures. So a fine start to the day tomorrow, and not an especially fresh one either. But not everywhere is going to get off to a fine start. Still some showers across western parts of Scotland continuing through the night and into the morning. Further east, a drier, brighter picture here. Across much of Northern Ireland starting to turn cloudier before that rain pushes its way in later on. And then across much of England and Wales, yes, a few showers for western areas, central and eastern parts getting the day off to a bright, often sunny start. Then as we go through the day, the big talking point is a band of rain that's sweeping its way in from the west. It's going to gradually make its way in, and the rain is going to be pretty heavy on it. And with the heavy rain, watch out as there could be some strong winds. We're talking coastal gales in places, particularly towards the west and southwest. Obviously under the wind and rain, it's going to feel pretty unpleasant at times. Further east, temperatures still just about getting into the low 20s, but later on that wet and windy weather is going to push through, so a wet end to the day across many eastern parts tomorrow, turning drier, brighter towards the west. The unsettled theme continues through the rest of the weekend and into the beginning of next week, with some showers or longer spells of rain for many of us. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. Make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 29th of August. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Today we have a special treat for you all because we're talking about John Stapleton.
Yes.
And he's reunited with his partner, boxing partner, on Breakfast Television.
Screen wife.
For the first time in 17 years.
Well, we were 17 years together.
We were.
And then I don't know how long that we haven't actually presented it. When did it all? When did the wheels come off?
Nearly 10 years ago.
10 years ago. 10 years ago that the wheels came off and we went our separate ways, like sort of squeaky supermarket trolleys.
But stayed in touch. Stayed in touch.
Oh yes, of course. We carried on with our very sober lunches.
Indeed.
Well, my friend, absolutely great to see you.
And you, fella.
And what's wrong with you?
I've got a thing called Parkinson's disease, which is what they call a progressive illness, which is a polite way of saying it'll only get worse. But thinking positive about it, lots of people live a nearly normal life with Parkinson's, so I'm aiming to do the same. I'm taking the tablets, I'm doing the exercises my expert tells me I should do. I'm speaking as well as I can because I need a speech therapist to talk more slowly and more clearly. I also have difficulty swallowing, and the latest thing is I've had difficulty with my balance, hence this stick I've got by my side all the time now. So, but, you know, I'm learning to live with it, doing my best to overcome it.
John, what is it? What is Parkinson's? Those are the effects it's having on you, but where's the problem? Why does it come about?
It's a neurological disorder, which means your body doesn't coordinate as it used to do. It's the fastest growing neurological complaint in the world, believe it or not. We don't quite know why, possibly because more of us are living longer. But, you know, As I say, you can live a near normal life with it, and so if you behave yourself, which I'm attempting to do.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Friday, the 29th of August. I'm Dawn Neeson.
And I'm Cameron Walker.
And you are indeed.
I am,
Walker,
yes. Haven't changed my name yet.
Just in case you've forgotten. Main stories this hour. Judges will today rule on whether asylum seekers can stay at the Bell Hotel in Epping. A decision that could set the tone for battles over the migrant hotels nationwide.
As does Chairman blast Rachel Reeves for taxing everything, urging her to invest in Britain instead of launching fresh tax raids in the budget.
And yes, Angela Rayner. Yeah, the house road just won't go away. It now emerges the Deputy PM dodged a $40,000 in stamp duty on her new seaside pad.
And for the first time, millions of children will get the chickenpox jab on the NHS as childhood immunisation rates hit an all-time low.
And reports suggest that Prince Harry is poised to meet with his father, King Charles, for the first time in nearly 20 months. But will it actually happen?
And today's famous Blackpool illuminations will be switched on with music performances from famous faces. Well, I think it's fair to say a number of you are getting in touch about what's happening in Epping, and of course the judgments we're expecting in less than an hour's time now as to whether that injunction will hold and whether migrants will be allowed to stay in the Bell Hotel in Epping.
Yes, and whatever way this judgment goes, it's going to be a mess and there'll be a lot of people very angry. And certainly you're angry already, and I understand exactly why you're feeling this at the government using the ECHR defence that seems to put migrants' rights before your rights.
Yeah, but certainly perception from a number of people in Epping. Gary from Telford, hello Gary, he's got in touch and he said, would it be a good compromise? We don't hear much about compromises nowadays, do we? It's quite polarised. To allow migrants to stop in the hotels but make the hotels secure using the army so that the occupants cannot go into the community. This protects the women and children and the migrants have good living facilities, probably a sensible option.
Yes, absolutely. And there was a great message coming from a lady. Sorry, our system has jumped and so I've lost your actual comment. But actually, you say that Dartmoor Prison has been empty since 2024. 700 potential vacancies there. Put them in there.
Well, there was a massive prison shortage, isn't there?
Yeah.
A number of beds. The Labour government's releasing prisoners early, which is obviously grinding people up.
But we'll be covering that story live, hopefully within the next hour, so you don't want to miss it, because this affects basically all our futures and actually raises the issue that we all feel the government aren't listening to us. Not just this government, the previous one either.
And it's not just Epping, of course, because this could have an effect on migrants' hotels around the whole country. So do get in touch if you have a view on that. gbnews.com/your say. Now it's for news with Lewis McKenzie.
Cameron, Dawn, thank you very much. Good afternoon. It's just after 1 o'clock. Here are your latest GB News headlines. The Home Office has told judges that asylum seekers' rights must come before local planning concerns as it fights to keep migrants housed in the Bell Hotel in Epping. Lawyers for Yvette Cooper say the Home Secretary has a legal duty under the ECHR to prevent asylum seekers from being left destitute. Epping Council claims the hotel breaks planning laws and has fuelled unrest. The Court of Appeal will give their verdict at 2 p.m. today. And if the injunction stands, migrants will have to be moved out, possibly paving the way for more councils to shut down migrant hotels. Labour Cabinet Minister Stephen Kinnock told GB News Breakfast, despite the legal challenge, the government are committed to closing asylum hotels.
If we end up with a disorderly discharge of asylum seekers from these hotels, it will just make the situation even worse. We have to manage that discharge. We are absolutely committed, as it said in our manifesto, that we will end the use of these hotels for asylum seekers. So it's not a question of whether we want to do this. We are absolutely committed to doing it. It's a question of how we manage it in a controlled and orderly and managed way.
but the deputy chairman of the Conservative Party, Matt Vickers, says that the hotel must be closed as soon as possible.
Council, the Conservative councillors who brought this case forward and got that injunction, are right. This case is literally a case of this Labour government against the British people. It is an atrocious situation that the Home Secretary, well, the government is saying that the rights of people who've broken into this country should come before those law-abiding residents in that area. It's completely wrong. We've seen some of the allegations of what's gone on in terms of sexual assault and things at the hotel. That community is terrified. People are afraid for their women and children to be going around in their own communities. Not acceptable. The place needs closing. It needs closing tomorrow.
Israel says they have recovered the body of an Israeli man killed in the October 7th attacks. The PM's office over there has confirmed in a statement that the body of 55-year-old Ilan Weiss, as well as items belonging to another unnamed hostage, were returned to Israel. His wife Shiri and daughter Noga were also abducted and later released as part of a hostage-prisoner swap in November of 2023. It's been reported Prince Harry will meet with his father, King Charles, for the first time since February of last year, when he returns to Britain. Harry is expected in London on the 8th of September for the 3rd anniversary of Queen Elizabeth II's death, where he will also attend the Well Child Awards, a charity event he avidly supports. All young children in England and Wales will be offered a free chickenpox vaccine on the NHS from January of next year. It will be given as 2 doses, at 12 and 18 months of age, combined with the existing MMR jab, which protects against measles, mumps and rubella. A secondary catch-up campaign is planned for slightly older children, so they don't miss out. And finally, a rare snow leopard cub has taken her first playful steps outside at Chester Zoo. After receiving thousands of name suggestions from zoo visitors and online followers around the world, conservationists have chosen the name Berry after the river that runs through Nepal, where you would find snow leopards naturally in the wild. With only around 4,000 snow leopards estimated left in the wild, it's welcome news for the survival of the species. Very adorable pictures there. Well, those are your latest GB News headlines for now. Let's have a look at your finances.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3457 and €1.1535. The price of gold is at £2,535.82 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 9,193 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Lewis. Isn't that snow leopard story lovely?
They are so cute.
And it's just really nice to have some good news on a day like today, because it's not a happy day, is it?
No.
The Home Office has told judges that asylum seekers' rights must come before local concerns as it fights to keep migrants housed in that Bell Hotel in Epping.
Lawyers for Yvette Cooper say the Home Secretary has a legal duty under the ECHR, remember that, to prevent asylum seekers from being left destitute. But Epping Council claims the hotel breaks planning laws and has fuelled unrest.
The Court of Appeal will give their verdict. We are hoping at round about 2 o'clock this afternoon. That's live on this show, so you don't want to miss it. And joining us now from outside the Royal Courts of Justice is GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White. Mark, are we still on track to hear this judgment at 2 o'clock this afternoon?
Yeah, we seem to be so far anyway. The plan is that that will be a televised address. And yesterday, when the Court of Appeal judges announced that they would be giving their ruling today, they said that they were aware of the urgency surrounding this issue. And of course, reading between the lines, given the fact that they said they're also going to deliver it in the style of the Supreme Court, in that they will give a narrative that will spell out reasons for a decision. They are clearly aware of the contentious nature of what is being ruled on today, because if it goes in favour of the Home Office and so many hotels, there will be some very angry people right around the country, especially, of course, in Eping, where they have been fighting the local people for years to get the Bell Hotel in Eping no longer used for asylum seekers, but to be returned to the local community. It's been used on and off over the past 5 years for asylum seekers. It's the first time, incidentally, the Epping Forest District Council decided to go to the High Court and use this planning issue, this narrow law around planning, as a way of trying to get the hotel use back to public ownership and not being used effectively as an asylum seeker hostel. It's interesting that during the argument yesterday, the Court of Appeal judges were asking Epping Forest District Council why they hadn't actually launched such an appeal before, given that it's 5 years on and off that this hotel has been used for migrants. And basically the council said, yes, they hadn't used it before. That doesn't preclude them from using that particular argument now. We'll see if the judges have been swayed by that or not. The Home Office, obviously, from their point of view, they say the decision that was made last week granting an injunction for the removal of the 138 migrants in that hotel by the 12th of September really impacts on the Home Secretary's ability to deliver her statutory duties. Again, the judges here put it to the Home Office, if it's so important in terms of the impact on the Home Secretary, why on earth did they leave it to the very last possible second before trying to intervene in this case? So lots of contentious issues here. There will be unhappiness on either side depending on how it goes. That decision, as I say, we're expecting at 2 o'clock this afternoon.
Yes, and Mark will be covering that for us. That is GB News Home Security Editor Mark White outside the Royal Courts of Justice there. We're awaiting that judgment, which we believe will be happening at around about 2 o'clock. And by the sounds of what Mark was saying, it will be televised as well. So we'll hear exactly what is behind this decision.
Yes, and we'll have the latest reaction from Epping as well, straight off the back of that judgment. But joining us now is the Reform UK candidate, Orla Minihane. Orla, good afternoon to you. You're from Epping. You wanted to represent Epping. I think there appears to be a perception from locals on the ground there that their human rights are secondary to the rights of the migrants. Is that what you're hearing?
Absolutely furious. I can't tell you. Last night we went to the hotel. We had a protest outside. The people of Epping are absolutely beside themselves. There are 135,000 tax-paying citizens in Epping Forest, but yet the Home Office seems to think that 138 illegal migrants trump the rights of those thousands and thousands of tax-paying people in Epping Forest. I mean, I've never heard anything as ludicrous. So it's not just about Epping. Is that what the Home Office think about every solitary tax-paying person in the UK? Is that what they think of us, that we come second to the thousands of illegal migrants that have broken into this country illegally and are being housed at our expense? We're supposed to suck it up and say, OK, that's fine. Their rights come before ours. It's outrageous.
We were talking to a Epping resident the other day, Orla, that was saying that they were finding the protests more upsetting than the actual migrants in the hotel. Just to give this debate some balance, it's not everybody in Epping that is really, really angry about the situation, is it?
No, I would tell, and I'll be honest with you, I would say that 80% are angry about the hotel, 80% are concerned, but 80% won't come out and stand outside that hotel for various reasons. They're scared. They don't want to be seen on TV. They don't want their employers to see that they are far right, which is this ridiculous accusation that's been going around for months. So people are scared to stand up. But let me tell you that when we were outside that hotel, every solitary car that goes past beeps. I get emails and texts day in and day out saying thank you for what you're doing. But people are scared to put their head above the parapet in case there are consequences. And that in itself is not right.
The Home Secretary would argue that she has a legal duty to make sure asylum seekers are not destitute, i.e. they get kicked out of the hotel and kicked out onto the streets. What would you say to her?
Do you know what? I watched that court yesterday, 3 hours, and the word destitute came up over and over again. Now, I would challenge you to go to anybody in the UK and ask them, have they got between 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 euros to cross the channel to go to France? And I would say that most people in the UK don't have that money to cross the channel and go to another country. In fact, most people in the UK currently are struggling to pay their bills. They're struggling to buy their children's school uniforms for next week. And yet we are being told that these men that are in this hotel getting 3 meals a day and all their amenities paid for are destitute. It is an insult to the people of this country. Yesterday, we stood outside the Bell and we watched residents from the hotel coming back with shopping bags from JD Sports and from Primark with new trainers on, and they walked straight past us into that hotel. How many people do you think in the UK can afford brand new trainers and a shopping spree?
Orla, there have been 2 alleged sexual assaults linked to the Bell Hotel, and yet the government are arguing about the vulnerable migrants. What would you say about the vulnerable young women and girls of Epping?
Do you know what? Last night, and I know I sound furious and I apologise for that, but I am furious because I'm standing with people. 2 mothers stood outside the school last night and cried because they're so scared about their daughters going back to school. There, last night, and you'll see on your footage, we showed how the residents or the protesters walked through a field, and you can see that on your footage. That field is a 5-minute cut through from the back of the Bell Hotel to the school. And it is known that those migrants walk across that field and sit outside that school, harassing young girls day in and day out. The parents are terrified. Where are our human rights? Where are the human rights of each girl that has got to go to that school next week?
Yeah. Orla, I mean, a lot of people would probably say you don't need to apologise because you're passionate and you clearly feel for what is going on in Epping. If the judgment goes in the government's favour in less than an hour's time, what do you think the reaction is going to be from the people of Epping?
I'll be honest with you, I don't think any of us think that the hotel will be closed down. I think that the judges will favour the Home Office. And it is a catch-22. Because if that hotel is closed down, where are they going to put these 138 men? Are they going to put them in HMOs around Epping? Or are they going to move them to someone else's borough, to someone else's town, where they harass and upset other residents and other children? So there is no winner here. We're all losers. The only thing that can be done is to deport these men, put them into a secure unit, put them, as that man said a minute ago about I don't know if it was you, Dawn, that said about the prison, put them in secure accommodation, process their asylum. If they are genuine asylum seekers, let them stay, process them appropriately. And if they are not, put them on a plane and send them home. Simple.
Orla, what about, this is a subject that's brought up by Nigel Farage himself, what about young women and girls who are asylum seekers? Should they be deported as well?
This is a very contentious issue, and the humanitarian side of me wants to say that a child that is born in the UK who is maybe 5 years old, do we want to send a young girl back to Afghanistan or Iran when we know how they are treated? No, I don't think we do, but it's such a fine line, and it is such a fundamental issue for reform to get right, and it's difficult, and I don't have the answers at the moment. I think that it's difficult because children that are born in the UK, it's not their fault. It's not their fault where their parents have come from or what their parents have done. And I think that every country has a duty to look after vulnerable children. Of course we do. And the people that are protesting outside the Bell Hotel, of course, if there were women and children in there who were who are actually asylum seekers who are leaving war-torn countries, we would not be protesting, but they simply are not. So it's about getting that, you know, that balance between who is here for the right reasons and who is here to, frankly, just take the mick out of us. Okay. And it's a fine line, and I hope Nigel gets that right.
OK, Orla, thank you very much for joining us now. Hopefully we'll be able to talk to you when we have the judgment, which is hopefully in about 40 minutes' time. That's Reform UK candidate Orla Minihane, who is based in Epping. OK, it's the final day to... So she's got some good news for people,
Some great news.
It's the final day to see how you could be a winner in our latest Great British giveaway. A winner just like the lovely Jane from Manchester, who won our biggest cash prize so far. Here's the moment we gave her the good news.
Jane, are you sitting down?
No, I don't. I'm not believing this.
Jane, you've won £54,321.
Please don't joke. I just would change my life.
Jane, you have won £54,321 with GB News. Congratulations.
Oh my God. Do you know what? I've just been shopping and I've got £50 to last me till the 31st of August. And I was trying to work things out.
Go and sit down, have a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath. That money is coming to you, all right?
Oh, my God, thank you so much.
She is just brilliant. I mean, I'm so pleased for Jane. It's just such a lovely story.
Down to her last £50.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are many Janes across the country who need help. But if you would like to also be a winner of a GB News giveaway, and if you want your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year plus £5,000 in cash, here's all the details.
It's the final day to see how you could win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. And if you don't have a mortgage or rent to pay, lucky you, we'll give you £15,000 tax-free cash instead. Lines close at 4 p.m. today, so don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Best of luck with that. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. Well, reports suggest that Prince Harry could be meeting King Charles when he comes across to the UK in a couple of months. But will it really go ahead? There seems to be some difference. And for the first time, millions of children will get the chickenpox jab on the NHS as the childhood immunisation rates hit an all-time low. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is our country, and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, we love it all. Even the rain, we like that too. There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Miriam, you can't be serious. Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry on pretending. The numbers just don't add up. We've got to be honest with people. We've got to face the facts. That's what people want.
Well, that's what you get on GB News and on Britain's Newsroom. Lively debates, lively conversation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first, and we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Good Afternoon Britain. The time is 1:26 and all young children in England and Wales will be offered a free chickenpox vaccine by the NHS from January of next year.
Indeed, until now, parents who wanted to protect their child against the virus had to usually pay up to £200 privately.
Ministers hope that by offering the chickenpox vaccine free of charge, it will not only shield children from potential complications from having chickenpox, but also reduce the number of parents having to take time off work to look after said unwell child.
OK, well, joining us now is pharmacist Thoran Govind. Congratulations are in order as well, Thoran, I understand. Newly married.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, we had an exciting weekend and it's lovely to be back with you.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent to have you back. OK, what's going on here, Thoran?
So, according to the Department of Health and Social Care, chickenpox causes an estimated 24 million in lost income and productivity every year in the UK. We know it's a massive hassle to a lot of parents as well. So this vaccine is now going to be available, whereas previously people had to pay for it, parents had to pay for it. It will be given at 2 doses, so at 12 and 18 months of age, and combined with the existing mumps, measles and rubella jab, which the MMR jab.
And Thoran, has there been a bit of a decline in the number of parents giving or allowing their children to have vaccines since the pandemic?
Yes, and we know that the pandemic disrupted a lot of those schedules. I think there's been a lot of vaccine fatigue as well. In fact, the World Health Organization, they have a target of about 95% for all of the doses for the illness to achieve what we call herd immunity, which means that the many being vaccinated maybe protect those few who don't have it. That's the idea, the concept behind that. But that just hasn't been met in recent years. And there's sharp differences as well across the country. I think we also need to think about just the timing and access to healthcare has changed significantly since the worst of COVID, and that has impacted getting these vaccines to people.
And Thoran, how dangerous is chickenpox to children?
It can have such a profound impact, and it's. I would just also point out pregnant women. We might not realise pregnant women are particularly at risk. It can cause complications for both mother and baby. In rare cases, chickenpox can cause swelling of the brain, inflammation of the lungs, and it can result in hospitalisation. So, you know, in the pharmacy, it's quite common for us to be having those conversations about chickenpox, and you'll remember going into the pharmacy and asking for some cream and also some advice about chickenpox. But it's really important that we encourage vaccination in this area, and also uptake when it comes to the MMR jab as well. Just as well on that, the risk of those people not having those, the risk is just we don't see these diseases sometimes, so we forget that they exist, and we forget how dangerous that they actually have been in recent years.
In some areas in London, reading about Hackney in East London here, the MMR vaccination rate has fallen to 58%. How do you convince those worried mums and dads that it is safe to get their children jabbed?
I mean, there can be cultural differences. There can be how people have connected with healthcare before, and that can be a barrier to people accessing these sorts of vaccines in advance. So the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation were really advising, recommending the introduction of this vaccine for chickenpox in November 2023. So it's taken us a little time to get to this stage, but it really is about speaking to people when they come into their local community pharmacy and their health visitors and their healthcare professionals, and finding out what the barriers are. But also, I think it's about explaining just the real, very real risks when it comes to these diseases, and how we want to prevent people getting them in the first place.
Thorin, what needs to happen in terms of trying to reduce the discrepancy of what groups are getting their children vaccinated and which aren't? Is it about educating parents? Is it about the NHS being more accessible to certain communities? What do you think are what's causing this?
I think it's a mix of the two. We all know, sometimes it can be a challenge to access healthcare. And because, again, if we think about measles and some of these diseases we did not see for a number of years. And then because people haven't been being vaccinated, they have resurged again. So about communicating the risks. Also, I think on social media, we see a huge amount of misinformation, but I think some really positive, educational campaigns coming out from places like the Department of Health and Social Care about the risks of these could be very powerful.
And Thorin, just finally, it will be anyone watching, mums and dads watching now, they can go to their local pharmacist for more information and even receive the vaccine at the local pharmacy.
Well, we're working on that information about the local pharmacy, so just hold fire on that for yet. But I definitely connect with your local surgery and healthcare professionals who will be able to give you the latest up-to-date information. Whilst we are continuing to develop and provide more and more services in the local community pharmacy, sometimes there's a little bit of a lag time between these things being available. So I think it's just about having patience with your healthcare professional, explaining the concerns, because I'm very, very happy to have a conversation with you about any medicine, actually, to talk about the risks versus benefits and any vaccine. And that's that just for you to know that you can come and talk to me is so important, and to make sure that we are having these conversations in society, because I think there is a bit of vaccine fatigue after COVID.
Great advice there. Pharmacists.
Thank you very much. Talking to us on a honeymoon as well, no less.
Yes.
Pharmacist Thorin Govind, and she got married at the weekend.
Congratulations to her.
Indeed, absolutely. No, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. There's loads more coming up on today's show.
Yes, reports suggest Prince Harry could finally reunite with King Charles after around 18 months apart. Plus, we'll have that ruling of the Bell Hotel in Epping at 2 o'clock, less than half an hour's time. Don't go anywhere. All of that and much more after your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon. The headlines from the GB newsroom. The Home Office has told judges that asylum seekers' rights must come before local planning concerns as it fights to keep migrants housed in the Bell Hotel in Eping. We're expecting the judgment in the next half hour, so stay tuned. Deputy Chairman of the Tories, Matt Vickers, says the hotel must close now.
That community is terrified. People are afraid for their women and children to be going around in their own communities. Not acceptable. The place needs closing. It needs closing tomorrow.
The government has told the contractor to remove jobs from the recruitment website after it emerged that there were plans to hire staff to teach failed asylum seekers skills like floristry and balloon crafting. All young children in England and Wales will be offered a free chickenpox vaccine on the NHS from January of next year. And some breaking news for you now. Early reports suggest that President Donald Trump has revoked Kamala Harris's Secret Service protection. All of those and much more coming up later on in the show. Those are your headlines. More from me in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, very good day to you. This is your latest GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. For many of us, today's going to be another showery day, but in the south it's actually got off to an even wetter start. That's because a weather system has been pushing its way from west to east overnight and through this morning. It's starting to clear away towards the east, but nonetheless some fairly persistent rain affecting parts of the southeast of England for a little while yet. Could be a bit of thunder mixed in with this. Elsewhere, like I said, lots of showers on offer. These feeding in from the west, so western areas seeing the most frequent showers, the heaviest, most thundery ones as well. And watch out for some blustery winds. The winds will take the edge off the temperatures, which are lower than they have been through recent weeks, but still just about scraping into the low 20s. So if you catch any decent sunny spells in the shelter from the wind, not feeling too bad. Plenty more showers to come as we go through this evening across much of Scotland. It's a showery theme, albeit the far east, parts of Aberdeenshire, for example, may stay largely dry. Showers continuing across Northern Ireland and also across much of England and Wales, though the showers are gradually going to be easing and clearing away as we go through the rest of the evening and overnight. Some showers will continue, however, across some western coastal parts in particular. Here they could linger. Elsewhere, many areas turning largely dry, and there will be some clear skies around, and with the clear skies, rural spots are likely to turn a bit fresh perhaps, could just about drop into single digits, but many towns and cities holding up in double figures, so not an especially fresh start to the day on Saturday. And it is looking like quite a fine start to the day for many of us. Good deal of dry and often sunny weather around through the beginning of the morning. However, a band of rain is going to feed in from the west, initially affecting parts of Northern Ireland, but then feeding into parts of Scotland, England and Wales. And this rain's looking quite heavy, and it's going to have some strong winds on it as well. And with the wet and windy weather, feeling quite a bit fresher.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The M25 clockwise between junction 24 and junction 25 is congested due to an accident, with one of 4 lanes closed. Road users should anticipate delays. On the A835 westbound near Ullapool, a major incident has closed the road. Use alternative routes and allow extra travel time. In Kent, the M20 westbound between junction 9 and junction 8 is partially blocked following a crash, with 1 lane closed. Allow extra time if travelling in this area. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 37 minutes past 1, and a reconciliation between Prince Harry and the King is said to be within reach as they are due to meet each other in early September.
Well, the Duke of Sussex is scheduled to return to London on the 3rd anniversary of the death of Queen Elizabeth II, but the real reason he's here is the Well Child Awards, in which he is patron and has been for 17 years.
Yeah, but this is all about the relationship with his dad and his brother. So joining us now is relationships expert Kate Mansfield. Kate, good to see you. Thank you very much. Now, obviously, Harry is back over here for the World Child Charity, which he does sterling work for. But the question on everyone's lips is, obviously, it's an important date. Will he see his family?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really hope so, because, you know, this has been a long-running rift now, and certainly there's healing that's needed. So I hope he is going to take that step.
So it's not been completely 100% confirmed if Prince Harry will be meeting the King. I understand that it is probably a possibility. But if they do meet, there has been a lot of tension, clearly, over the last few years. And from the Buckingham Palace and Kensington Palace's perspective, it appears to be trust that is the fundamental issue here, because Prince Harry has, over a number of years, gone very public with his grievances. In other words, airing his dirty laundry in private. So if you were advising either Prince Harry or the King or Prince William on mending the relationship, where would you begin?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Harry needs to really start out with some quite radical self-accountability. So, for example, owning his part in his contribution to the conflict, maybe acknowledging how his public approach may have deepened wounds, recognising times he might have misinterpreted intentions or acted from hurt rather than facts, and taking some responsibility for his adult choices, I think.
It's very important that obviously the brothers get back together, but is the real fly in the ointment here the two wives? I mean, there has been a lot of bad blood between them, if we can believe half the things we read.
That may be true. I mean, I do think when we're trying to approach healing any kind of rift, especially with family, we need to start with one relationship and one issue, because it's so complicated and as it is. And then when we start bringing other people into the mix, it just can feel very overwhelming. So while that might be true, I think Harry would be best off really just starting with his dad and starting to heal that relationship.
And with a rift as big as it is at the moment, how long would it take to, have some kind of reconciliation between a father and a son? Forget the fact that they're members of the royal family. I mean, any father and son who's gone through conflict, how long does it take to heal?
I mean, that really varies very much depending on the situation, on the type of rift, on the ages of the father and son. I mean, I think when somebody's not well, which is the case, I think as we get older, as our parents age, certainly it tends to speed up the time it takes. I think, it's really just about stepping forward, being willing to have some humility, being willing to take some ownership. Again, it depends on really Harry's approach, I think, more so than the King's here. So it could happen fairly quickly, hopefully for them both,
As I say, Kate, as a relationships expert, from what you've seen, I mean, we know that their private secretaries had a meeting earlier on this year. Do you think the signs are good that there will be a thawing out, certainly between Harry and his dad?
I would say yes. Obviously, because they're the royal family, it's very difficult to know what really goes on behind closed doors. But I think, we've got the issue of, for them, it's twofold. There's the public kind of persona that they put forward, the story that they tell us, and then there's what's really going on behind closed doors. Certainly for anyone in the public eye, it's in their interest to heal rifts. They have a public responsibility, a moral responsibility to some extent, to, set an example to us, actually, in a way. So I do think that plays into it, and I do think that will at least appear to us that the rift is healing. Whether it really does behind the scenes is another matter.
And you say focusing on one relationship, the father and the son, in this case King Charles and Prince Harry. But of course Prince Harry has a brother, William, who, as far as we can understand, has not spoken to his younger brother for a number of years, and probably there is more of a rift between the two brothers than there is the King and his youngest son. But of course there's a relationship, isn't there, between the King and William. So would William's influence cause perhaps some issues in terms of trying to reconcile Harry and the father, the King?
Certainly that can happen. The psychological term for that is splitting, if we want to get technical about it, where, when a father, one of the sons are very close and there's a rift with another sibling, certainly that can kind of compound some of the issues. Again, though, I really think it's in the royal family's interest for them all to heal their rifts and, for them to work this out and to try and, come out of the other side in a good place, in a place hopefully of maturity and hopefully of healing for all of them.
You're advising the King and Harry. What would your number one piece of advice be for them?
I think really just a great tip, and this can be for anyone watching as well, whether they're royals or just ordinary people, is do some emotional regulation before you approach these type of conversations. Go and do some meditation, some breathing, get grounded, make sure you're in a good place before you go and approach the other person. And that's just a blanket tip that might be helpful for anybody watching.
OK, Kate Mansfield, relationships expert, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate your time.
OK, right, I had lots of messages coming in on all the subjects we're talking about today. Interestingly, on the royals, Angela says, I hope Wills and the King will tell, not entirely complimentary words there about Harry, to do one. I have no respect for him whatsoever.
Yeah, well, I think...
Harsh words?
Well, yeah, but you're entitled to your opinion.
Absolutely.
And I think, yeah, Prince William...
Meanwhile, Lynn says, interesting, so many women get involved in this conversation. Lynn says, the 2 wives aren't the problem, it's just the one.
Yeah, Simon says Prince Harry needs to grow up. It's very, very simple. Yeah, there seems to be lots of you actually getting in touch about Prince Harry. Lots of you actually get a bit annoyed when we start talking about Prince Harry and not ask what the point is. I suppose my answer to that would be, OK, he's no longer a working member of the royal family, but legally he's still 6th in line to the throne and the son of the king, so it's kind of inevitable we're going to discuss him. But anyway, of course, the Prince and Princess of Wales will be back off holiday very shortly, and they'll be doing more engagements.
You're going to be even busier, aren't you?
Yes.
And lots of you are getting in touch about the judgment we are waiting for with the government appealing against that the hotel in Eping, and we are waiting that. We're expecting that in about 15 minutes' time. Lots of you are not that hopeful that the hotel and Eping County Council will win, and David Seymour says we all know what the judgment will be and the government needs to be held responsible for what happens afterwards. So not optimistic there, but we will, as I said, cover that live in hopefully about 15 minutes. We'll have full coverage of the vote, which we hope will be a televised verdict. So we'll hear all the reasoning behind the decision and why they have made it.
Yes, and we'll have Mark White outside the Royal Courts of Justice bringing you the latest analysis. We will also have Jack Carson, we believe, in Eping, getting reaction from ordinary people there on the ground. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show, of course.
Yeah, today the famous Blackpool illuminations will be switched on with music performances from famous faces. We'll be there live.
Now, if you're in search of some winter sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Loads of sunshine and offer across the eastern Mediterranean. A few heavy showers in southern Italy and across Croatia. And the same weather system bringing the UK some wet weather on Saturday will also bring some rain to northernmost parts of Spain and Portugal. But most of Iberia dry, fine and sunny. Heavy showers in central and southern Italy and pretty wet in Croatia as well. Further heavy showers to come in Dubrovnik on Sunday. They should be clearing by Monday. Sunny skies in Barcelona.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I remember being introduced to Ken Bates.
Chelsea.
Who owned Chelsea, and just asked to sit down with him and then spend the next sort of 2 or 3 hours with him having lunch. And an ex of Donald Trump, Ivana Trump, his wife, and
oh, you had dinner with her?
Yeah, I remember having dinner actually with Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Did you?
Yeah. You said earlier you couldn't think of anyone.
I was listing them.
I can't think of anyone. That literally just come into my head.
Hi, Catherine Zeta-Jones. Can we go back to that, please?
Catherine Zeta-Jones was. I used to live in a flat in Fulham, and I'm up at the top of the flat, and I was a sports reporter at the BBC, and I went round to Pizza Express, and I'm sitting eating, having my dough balls and everything else I was having. And reading the back pages of the papers in preparation for the work that I was doing the next day. Yeah. And I walked out of the cafe, and the beautiful, most stunning woman, Catherine Zeta-Jones, was walking by, and she said, "Oh, hello, Eamon." And then Welsh accent.
Really?
Hello, Eamon. How are you? And we were standing talking, and we were nattering away, and she said, "Anyway, why are we standing talking in the street? Have you eaten?"
And I went, said no.
I went, no, I didn't say no. I went, No. And I went inside, and I remember Pizza Express was empty. And the waiter saw me again, and I went and sat down with Catherine, and he said, "And you, sir, are you eating?" And I went, "Yes." He said, "What do you have?" And I said, "Could I have the dough balls?" And I've never been able to eat dough balls again since.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Miriam, you can't be serious. Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry on pretending. The numbers just don't add up. We've got to be honest with people. We've got to face the facts. That's what people want.
Well, that's what you get on GB News and on Britain's Newsroom. Lively debates, lively conversation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first, and we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 10 to 1, and tonight Blackpool will light up the night sky as its world-famous illuminations are indeed switched on.
Oh yeah, the lights first dazzled visitors back in 1879. Can you believe that? Dubbed artificial sunshine with just 8 lamps. Then, compared to what we see today with miles of dazzling displays.
It is wonderful. It's really good. Our reporter Sophie Reaper joins us live from Blackpool. Sophie, how's it going up there? Stopped raining at least.
Indeed it has. The sun has actually come out for us, although it is a little bit windy. I think that's definitely preferable to the weather that we had here in Blackpool this morning. So that's something for visitors tonight. And in just over 7 hours' time, the sun will have set, that switch will have been flipped, and Blackpool's illuminations will have been lit up once more. And what a show visitors are in for. Of course, this is one of the iconic things that everyone associates with Blackpool. This time of year, the switch on, it's a huge thing. And in the coming months, it will attract around 12 million visitors, 12 million. And they'll start just down there, just past where you can see in the distance the big dipper there at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. And they'll make their way either by foot or in cars. They'll make their way down the promenade, down the beachfront, past Blackpool Tower. 6 miles worth of lights, including 1 million lamps. That's slightly more than the 8 that they started with all the way back in 1879. It's an incredible event, definitely one to witness. It brings in around £250 million to Blackpool's local economy, which is a huge boost for this town, which relies on the gig economy. Earlier I had the chance to speak to the area's MP, Chris Webb, and this is what he told me.
These are historic, not just in Blackpool but across the country. We're celebrating 146 years of the illuminations this year. We've got a fantastic line-up and headline act. Blackpool's back on the map. We've had a great season. More to be done. We know it supports local businesses, the hospitality sector. You know, we're now seeing over 21 million people flocking to Blackpool every year. The illuminations is one of our biggest draws all the way through now to Christmas. It's huge for local businesses, but also for local people as well.
And there you go, a big show tonight. Performances from the likes of Ollie Murs and Top Loader. So if anyone's in the area and they still fancy it, they'll have big screens all over the promenade. You've still got time to get down, get yourself a bit of Blackpool rock, get yourself some fish and chips and enjoy the illuminations.
Oh, that sounds great, Sophie. Absolutely amazing.
Oh, love Blackpool. Wish I was there now. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. There's loads more coming up on today's show, so don't go anywhere. We'll have that judgment on whether asylum seekers can stay at the Bell Hotel in Eping, a judgment that has wide-reaching effects across the country. But first, it's a quick look at the weather for you.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, a very good day to you. I'm here with your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Many of us will see a fair few more showers to come as we go through the rest of today, but then tomorrow there's a band of heavy rain that's going to sweep its way, and that's in association with a frontal system currently waiting out in the Atlantic. Before that though, it is a showery picture as we go through the rest of today. Yes, there'll be some sunny spells in between the showers, but some of the showers could be quite heavy, maybe even thundery. Then later on we're going to see the showers generally easing and clearing away, but some showers continuing across western coastal parts in particular. Other places, more central eastern areas, turning largely dry, some clear skies, but towns and cities not seeing temperatures dropping too low, most places holding up in double figures. So a fine start to the day tomorrow, not an especially fresh one either. But not everywhere is going to get off to a fine start. Still some showers across western parts of Scotland continuing through the night and into the morning. Further east, a drier, brighter picture here. Across much of Northern Ireland starting to turn cloudier before that rain pushes its way in later on. And then across much of England and Wales, yes, a few showers for western areas, central and eastern parts getting the day off to a bright, often sunny start. Then as we go through the day, the big talking point is a band of rain that's sweeping its way in from the west. It's going to gradually make its way in, and the rain is going to be pretty heavy on it. And with the heavy rain, watch out as there could be some strong winds. We're talking coastal gales in places, particularly towards the west and southwest. Obviously under the wind and rain, it's going to feel pretty unpleasant at times. Further east, temperatures still just about getting into the low 20s, but later on that wet and windy weather is going to push through, so a wet end to the day across many eastern parts tomorrow, turning drier, brighter towards the west. The unsettled theme continues through the rest of the weekend and into the beginning of next week, with some showers or longer spells of rain for many of us. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. Make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 29th of August. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 2 o'clock on Friday, the 29th of August. I'm Cameron Walker.
And I'm Dawn Neeson.
And a judgment on whether to overturn the injunction blocking the use of a hotel for asylum seekers is expected very, very shortly.
The Home Office has told judges that asylum seekers' rights must come before local concerns as it fights to keep migrants housed in the Bell Hotel in Eping. But Eping Council claim the hotel breaks planning laws and has fuelled unrest.
Well, let's bring in our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, who joins us live from outside the Royal Courts of Justice. Mark, we are just moments away, aren't we, from this judgment? What more can you tell us?
Well, told that the court is now filling up ahead of that judgment handed down by these senior judges who yesterday heard a number of arguments, of course, on behalf of the appellants, the Home Office and Samani Hotels, the owners of the Bell Hotel, appealing against that decision, that temporary injunction that was granted, that interim injunction handed down by the High Court at the beginning of last week. A decision that was a bit of a shock, but was clearly a decision that was welcomed by many people within Eping who have been campaigning for years to have the Bell Hotel closed down in terms of its use as a migrant hotel. Remember, this is a hotel that has been used on and off since 2020 to house asylum seekers, migrants in that particular hotel, despite the concerns that local people in the community have had about this, and of course despite the concerns that Epping Forest District Council have had. They have been concerned about the fact that this hotel had changed use from a hotel, an amenity that was open to everyone in that local community, to effectively now an asylum hostel. And to that end, the planning enforcement officer for Epping Forest District Council had spoken to Samani Hotels, the Bell Hotel owners, on a number of occasions in 2020. In 2022, it was told that because of the fact that the number of asylum seekers being housed there had taken it beyond what was everyday use as a hotel into an asylum hostel, that constituted a change of use, and as such there should be an application to change the use of that hotel. Well, that application was actually submitted, we're told, in 2022, but then later withdrawn in March of 24 when there had not been a conclusion to that particular planning application. And at that point in March of 2024, it was another period where asylum seekers had been housed there but were no longer going to be housed there, so apparently Samani groups withdrew their application, but there had been no renewed application as far as we know from 2025 when the hotel itself was being used again to house asylum seekers, and that of course is what Epping Forest District Council took to the High Court here, claiming that there had been a breach of planning laws, that Samani Hotels was in breach, and that there should be an injunction. That was handed down, as I say, last week, and now is being appealed by the Home Office and by Samani Hotels themselves. It will be far-reaching, the decision that is handed down by these appeal court judges, because if it goes in favour of the Home Office and Samani Hotels, and those asylum seekers are allowed to stay in the Bell Hotel, then clearly there will be a great deal of anger and upset within the local community in Eping, having fought this for years and finally believing that they had really got somewhere with these asylum seekers having to be removed from that hotel under the current injunction by the 12th of September to going back to square one effectively. And then you've got the issue, of course, of asylum-seeking hotels right around the country where many people had believed that this may be a way forward, a way of fighting this imposition that we have had from the Home Office. Because remember, the communities have no say about an asylum-seeking hotel. That hotel is taken out of commission, is requisitioned by the Home Office without any kind of feedback from the community, any say of the community as to what the hotel should be used for. We can now, I think, hear that judgment.
OK, Mark White, our Home and Security Editor, thank you very much. We can now take you live inside to the Royal Court of Justice.
This is a summary of the judgment of the court, a decision which runs to over 120 paragraphs. In accordance with the court's usual practice, the full text will be supplied to the parties' legal teams today for checking for any typographical errors or factual errors such as, for example, a wrong date or reference. The judgment is not supplied at this stage for further argument. As soon as the parties have had the opportunity to carry out these checks, the full text will be uploaded to the National Archive and will be published on the judicial website. This summary will be published on the judiciary website as soon as practicable after this hearing. These are two linked applications for permission to appeal before the court. The applications were listed for oral hearing yesterday on the 28th of August 2025 with the appeals to follow. The first of the applications is brought by the Secretary of State for the Home Department, Home Secretary, and the second by Somani Hotels Limited, Somani. The respondent to both appeals is Epping Forest District Council, the council. The appeals themselves both concern the grant to the council of a temporary, i.e. time-limited, injunction by Mr. Justice Eyre, the judge, on 19th August 2025. That injunction was granted pursuant to Section 187B of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990, the 1990 Act, to restrain Somani from using the Bell Hotel at High Road, Bell Common, Epping, Essex, the hotel, as accommodation for asylum seekers. The council argues in this case that Somani's actions are in breach of planning law. Section 187B of the 1990 Act provides that, quote, where a local planning authority consider it necessary or expedient for any actual or apprehended breach of planning control to be restrained by injunction, they may apply to the court for an injunction. Section 187B(2) provides the court with a wide discretion in relation to the grant of an injunction, i.e. as the court thinks appropriate for the purpose of restraining the breach. The temporary injunction granted in this case was to last for only a relatively brief period until the trial of the council's claim, at which a High Court judge will consider and determine the council's application for a permanent injunction and declaration. This is listed for a trial date in mid-October 2025. That is approximately 7 weeks from now. We should say at the outset what this appeal hearing is not about. It is not concerned with the merits of government policy in relation to the provision of accommodation for asylum seekers in hotels or otherwise. The issues for determination by this court can be summarised as follows. A. Prior to giving his judgment on the council's application for the temporary injunction, the judge gave a short oral ruling explaining why he was refusing permission to the Home Secretary to become a party, an intervener, to the council's injunction application. We consider in this appeal whether the judge was wrong to do so. The judge went on, the judge went on to grant the temporary injunction to restrain the continued provision of accommodation to asylum seekers at the hotel pending the trial. In this respect, too, we consider whether he was wrong to do so. Background facts. The hotel is situated on the outskirts of the centre of Eping. It is currently owned and run by Somani. The council is the local planning authority for the district of Eping. The hotel currently accommodates approximately 138 asylum seekers. The provision of this accommodation is under contract between Somani and Corporate Travel Management North Limited, CTM, a service provider contracted by the Home Office to provide accommodation to asylum seekers. This is the third period in the hotel's recent history in which it has been used for the provision of accommodation for asylum seekers. Previously, it was used in this respect, A, between 22nd May 2020 and 4th March 2021, and B, between October 2022 and April 2024. At no time during these earlier periods, between 20 and 2024, did the Council take steps to restrain Somani from providing accommodation at the hotel for asylum seekers. Within the second period referred to above, specifically in February 2023, Somani applied to the Council for planning permission for a temporary change of use, i.e. to accommodate asylum seekers rather than operating the hotel for paying members of the public. Somani did so without prejudice to its legal position that the hotel could lawfully, temporarily accommodate asylum seekers under contract with the Home Office. For over a year, the Council did not deal with Somani's application, notwithstanding the statutory duty to deal with such an application within 8 weeks. As the contract between Somani and the Home Office came to an end in or about April 2024, Somani withdrew its application for temporary change of use. For about 1 year, the hotel was closed. In March 2025, Somani entered into a contract with CTM to provide exclusive use of the hotel for 1 year for the purpose of short-term accommodation for asylum seekers. The Council was aware of this plan and confirmed its agreement to a maximum of 138 residents for the hotel. In April 2025, the hotel reopened, providing accommodation for up to 138 single adult male asylum seekers. The Council informed Somani that it would need to seek permission for a change of use of the hotel. On 15th May 2025, Somani, having taken advice from the Home Office, informed the Council in writing that it would not be submitting a temporary application for a change of use. The Council did not reply. On 11th August, without any prior pre-action notice, either formal or informal, to Somani or the Home Office, the Council issued injunction proceedings against Somani under Section 187B of the 1990 Act to restrain the use of the hotel as a matter of planning control for accommodating asylum seekers. The Council also sought a temporary interim injunction pending trial. It sought a declaration that the current use of the hotel does not amount to use as a hotel, which is the permitted use of the premises for the purposes of planning control. The documents were formally served on Somani on 12th August. Since April 2025, 3 arrests have been made by the police in respect of individuals accommodated at the hotel, and criminal charges have been brought against the individuals. One incident is reported to have occurred on 8th July and involved alleged sexual assaults, incitement of a girl to engage in sexual activity, and harassment without violence. This has unsurprisingly attracted considerable interest in local and national media. Since July 2025, there have been largely continuous protests outside the hotel. The focus of the protests is that the hotel should no longer be used to house asylum seekers. Some of the protests have involved violent and disorderly incidents. As of 3rd August, the police reported that 25 people had been arrested in connection with offences at these protests, and 16 people had been charged with criminal offences. The application for an injunction under Section 187B of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990. The hearing of the Council's application for a temporary injunction was listed before the judge on Friday, 15th August 2025. By this time, the Home Office had received informal notice of the application, but was neither present nor represented at the hearing. The judge reserved his judgment in relation to the application for the temporary injunction until 2 p.m. on Tuesday, 19th August. On Monday, 18th August, the Government Legal Department issued an application for the Home Secretary to be joined as a party to the litigation. This application was considered by the judge on 19th August, prior to the delivery of his reserved judgment. The application was supported by Somani but opposed by the Council. In a short oral judgment, the judge gave his reasons for refusing the Home Secretary's application for party status. In short, he concluded that it was not, quote, desirable, unquote, a term used in the civil procedure rules, for the Home Secretary to be a party to the litigation. The judge then went on to hand down his reserved judgment. In that judgment, he gave his reasons for granting the Council the temporary injunction. Under the terms of the injunction, Somani was restrained from using the hotel for accommodating asylum seekers, howsoever described, or for using the hotel otherwise than as a hotel. The upshot of the injunction is that all 138 asylum seekers currently resident at the hotel will need to be relocated by 12th September, pending the final hearing in October. The Home Secretary and Somani promptly issued applications for permission to appeal to this court. They were listed before us for hearing yesterday. Given the importance and urgency of the matter, we are giving judgment today. The Court of Appeal's decision on the Home Secretary's appeal relating to joinder as an intervener to the Council's application. The Court of Appeal grants the Home Secretary's application for permission to appeal against the decision dismissing her application for party status, and further grants the Home Secretary intervener status in the litigation between the Council and Somani. The Home Secretary has clear statutory duties towards asylum seekers in this country under the Immigration and Asylum Act 1999. These include the duty to provide support to them and their dependents, and to prevent destitution among this cohort. Given these duties, in addition to her constitutional role relating to public safety, the Home Secretary is plainly directly affected by the issues in this case, and specifically by the grant or not of an injunction to restrain the provision of accommodation for the asylum seekers at the hotel. On an application for party status, the court will consider whether, quote, it is desirable to add the new party so that the court can resolve all the matters in dispute in the proceedings, unquote. Civil Procedure Rule 19.22. The judge failed to give this rule the wide interpretation it required, which led to his erroneous finding that the Home Secretary's application should be refused. He failed to have any adequate regard to the range of issues which would be likely to arise if the injunction were granted. These included, but were not limited to, the significant practical challenge of relocating a large number of asylum seekers in a short space of time, and possibly only for a matter of a few weeks between 12th September and mid-October, when the trial is to take place. If the Council's application were to fail at trial, the hotel would be permitted to continue to operate as it is at present. The judge denied himself the opportunity to consider the wider range of public interest factors which would be relevant to this application. These, in our view, rendered it more than just merely desirable that the Home Secretary be enabled to participate in the court process. The judge needed to put himself in a position to determine the application from the most informed perspective. The Home Office was in a strong position to provide evidence relevant to the disputes and issues before the court at this interim stage and at the final hearing. We were unpersuaded that it would be sufficient for the Home Office to provide evidence for Somani to file. The provision of key evidence by someone outside the litigation to someone within the litigation hardly meets the expectation of a right to be heard. Moreover, the judge appeared to apply a test of necessity to the question of joinder, which placed the bar for joinder too high. While the judge was entitled to be concerned that the Home Office had applied very late for the Home Secretary to be made a party to the litigation, that did not, in our view, justify excluding her from the proceedings. We turn now to the substantive issue of whether an interim injunction should have been granted. This court takes as its starting point that an interlocutory injunction is a discretionary remedy. It is not open to this court to set aside the exercise of the judge's discretion simply because the three of us would have exercised it differently. It is our role to review that decision and only interfere with it if we identify a flaw or flaws in the judge's treatment of the question to be decided, such as an error of law, a gap in logic, or a failure to take account of some material factor which undermines the cogency of the conclusion. We conclude that the judge made a number of errors of principle which undermine his decision. The wider picture. The provision of accommodation for asylum seekers pursuant to the Home Secretary's statutory duty is a national issue requiring a structured response. Ad hoc interim injunction applications seeking closure of particular sites may each have some individual merit, but the judge's approach ignores the obvious consequence that closure of one site means that capacity needs to be identified elsewhere in the system and may incentivize local planning authorities who wish to remove asylum accommodation from their area to apply to the court urgently before capacity elsewhere in the system becomes exhausted. The potential cumulative impact of such ad hoc applications was a material consideration within the balance of convenience that was not considered by the judge, perhaps because he did not have the advantage in reaching his decision of evidence and submissions from the Home Office. The arguments on behalf of the Home Secretary in this, the written arguments on behalf of the Home Secretary in this appeal included the contention that, quote, the relevant public interests in play are not equal, unquote, and that one aspect of this is that the Home Secretary's statutory duty is a manifestation of the UK's obligations under Article 3 of the European Convention on Human Rights. This point was not pursued in oral argument. Any argument in this particular context about a hierarchy of rights is, in our view, unattractive. The incentivisation of protests. We were told by counsel for Eping that the protests operated as a trigger for the application for the injunction. The fact of protests outside a building is not obviously a matter falling within planning control. While we accept that the judge was right to exercise considerable caution before attaching weight to the fact of the protests, including unlawful protests, outside the hotel, he nonetheless gave weight in his evaluation to the fact that protests were occurring and weighed them in the balance as a factor in favour of granting the injunction. These are worrying aspects of the judgment. If an outbreak of protests enhances the case for a planning injunction, this runs the risk of acting as an impetus or incentive for further protests, some of which may be disorderly, around asylum accommodation. At its worst, if even unlawful protests are to be treated as relevant, there is a risk of encouraging further lawlessness. The judge does not appear to have considered this risk, again perhaps because he had denied himself the advantage of hearing submissions on the merits from counsel for the Home Secretary. Further, and in any event, in this regard, the judge failed to consider whether there would have been alternative measures to mitigate the disruption, such as the use of police powers under the Public Order Act 1986, or an application by the Council to restrain unlawful protests. Epping's delay. For much of the period of 4 years from 2020 to 24, Somani had been running the hotel as accommodation for asylum seekers without enforcement action from the Council. When in 2023 Somani sought planning consent to change its use, for over a year Epping did not process the application, notwithstanding the statutory duty upon it to do so within 8 weeks. The Council was aware by 2025 that the hotel was once again to be used to house asylum seekers, and by its letter of 15 May 2025, Somani made clear that it had been advised by the Home Office that a planning application was unnecessary. The Council took no steps in response to this letter, whether by issuing an enforcement notice or otherwise. There was no threat of court proceedings. Somani was first made aware of any step of this kind when it received the court papers and the court bundle running to over 1,600 pages, together with a detailed skeleton argument prepared by leading and junior counsel. The tactics used on the Council's behalf in this regard were not only procedurally unfair to Somani, but ought to have reinforced the argument that the delay was a significant factor in the balance against the grant of interim relief. Somani's actions wrongly characterised as deliberate. The judge found as a fact that Somani had acted, quote, deliberately, unquote, in declining to seek change of use permission under planning law after April 2025. He was critical of them for taking this line. He was wrong in both respects. Those undeserved criticisms, which were repeated several times in the judgment, plainly played a material part in the judge's ultimate decision. If the Council had considered Somani to be in breach of planning laws, it could have taken enforcement measures provided for within the 1990 Act. It did not do so. In short, the judge's exercise of discretion in this case was seriously flawed by his erroneous reliance on the, quote, deliberate breach, unquote, as a significant factor in favour of the grant of an interim injunction. The temporary nature of the injunction. We emphasise here, as we did at the outset, that the issue for the judge in August was whether to grant a temporary injunction until the trial in October. The judge appears to have given very little weight to the desirability of preserving the status quo until that point. The risk of injustice to the residents of the hotel by being dispersed by 12th September, when the trial of the claim was to take place only some 6 weeks later, seems to have had oddly little resonance with the judge. In all of the circumstances, we consider on these issues that the judge's approach to the balance of convenience exercise was seriously flawed in principle. The exercise of his discretion can therefore be reviewed on appeal. The Epping residents' fear of crime was properly taken into account by the judge as a factor in favour of the grant of an injunction. He described it as being of limited weight. The appellants do not say it was irrelevant. The Council does not say it should be decisive. We agree that it is relevant, but in our view it is clearly outweighed in the American cyanamide balancing exercise by the undesirability of incentivising protests. by the desirability in the interests of justice of preserving the status quo for the relatively brief period leading up to the forthcoming trial, and by the range of public interest factors which we have discussed in our judgment. Therefore, we grant permission to appeal both to Somani and to the Home Secretary against the grant of the interim injunction. We allow the appeals and we set aside the injunction imposed on 19 August 2025. The case management directions given by the judge can remain in force, subject to any amendment necessitated by the joinder of the Home Secretary as an intervener. We direct that submissions on costs are to be exchanged and filed by 12 noon on Monday, 1st September, along with any suggested typographical or factual corrections which come to Council's attention. We end by recording our gratitude to Council for their helpful submissions.
There we are. It has been confirmed that a temporary injunction that would have blocked asylum seekers from being housed at the Bell Hotel in Eping has been overturned at the Court of Appeal. For the latest analysis on this, we can join our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, outside the Royal Court of Justice. Mark, what does this mean for the asylum seekers in that hotel and the people of Eping?
Well, it means for now those asylum seekers are not going anywhere. They are staying put in the Bell Hotel. This will be a bitter blow for, of course, Epping Forest District Council, who were the local authority that sought that injunction to have these asylum seekers removed from the Bell Hotel. And it will be a bitter blow for the people of Epping, many of the people of Epping who have been out campaigning, protesting for not just weeks or months, but for years against the use of the Bell Hotel for housing migrants. But the judges, and we heard there from Lord Justice Bean there, who on behalf of the 3 appeal court judges read out that ruling, it was a withering takedown, I think, of the ruling that was passed here just over a week ago, last Tuesday, Mr. Justice Eyre granting that injunction to Epping Forest District Council to have these asylum seekers, well, 138 of them, removed from the Bell Hotel, pending that main trial, which is due to take place on the 22nd of October, some 7 weeks from now, which will decide once and for all whether the hotel can or cannot be used for asylum seeker accommodation. But in the interim, of course, those migrants would have to be removed from the hotel. But now that ruling handed down just last Tuesday, the judge in that case, Mr. Justice Eyre, erred. Seriously flawed was the description of Mr. Lord Justice Bean to Mr. Justice Eyre in some of his reasoning when he came up with that particular ruling granting the injunction to Epping Forest District Council. He went, of course, in his quite expansive judgment, setting out the background to this case. He highlighted how the hotel itself had been in use on 3 separate occasions to house asylum seekers from 2020 up until now, and at a number of occasions it had fallen out of use again with the asylum seekers, but at one point in 2023, having been approached by a planning officer, Somani Hotels did put forward a planning application for a change of use, because it had been the council's contention that as it was no longer a hotel housing anybody that wants to book in there and being an amenity for the local community, and instead had simply become an asylum hostel, they should apply for a change of use. So many hotels did in 2023 apply for a change of use. They heard nothing, the appeal court said, for more than a year, until in 2024, March of 2024, that application was then withdrawn by so many hotels, because at that point it was no longer going to be used as an asylum-seeking hotel again. All that changed, of course, in April of this year, when the current government decided to put migrants back in this hotel. And at that point, so many hotels were warned that they would need to seek planning permission for a change of use once again. However, the hotel on this occasion sought the advice of the Home Office and then did not put an application in, and that's where we got to, of course, now with the Eping Forest District Council taking this injunction out at the High Court. But again, in their ruling, the Court of Appeal judges said at no point did the local authority tell so many hotels that they were in breach of planning regulations, having not submitted that change of use planning application. Instead, the first Somani knew about the action being taken against them was when they were served with the papers. So that was another point of criticism for Eping Forest District Council, that the appeal court judges feel that Mr Justice Eyre last Tuesday in his ruling didn't give due weight and prominence to in his ruling. So it's a complicated ruling, these things always are, but it has wide-reaching implications for the Home Office, for the housing of asylum seekers in hotels right around the country, because we know this government is committed to, or they say they're committed to getting rid of asylum seeker hotels by the end of this Parliament. Thus far, they have made very little, if any, inroads into actually doing that, into ending the use of asylum seeker hotels. But for the moment, at least, they will continue to be able to do that. And what that's going to mean is that in Eping, certainly, and in other locations around the country, these protests against their use by asylum seekers will continue.
Thank you very much, Mark White. You're joining our Good Afternoon Britain on GB News as we learn live the government wins the appeal against Bell Hotel closure for asylum seekers, which means the asylum seekers can stay in that hotel until the next hearing, which is in the autumn. OK, let's go live to Epping for reaction, where we are joined by Jack Carthen. What's the reaction there, Jack?
Yeah, thank you very much, Bo. Yeah, well, there are a few members of the public already gathering, seemingly a bit of a confrontation from one of the locals to the police that are here. And as you can see, seemingly media and other people alike gathering around that man who seemingly is confronting a couple of police officers. There is a police presence here in the expectation that there might well be protests off the back of the decision that's been made this afternoon by the Court of Appeal. There is evidence around here of those past protests of St George's flags on the signs, the actual Bell Hotel sign since taken down and also covered up on part of the building as well. The incentivisation of protests was something that was mentioned in the Court of Appeal's decision there, a reference to counter-protests outside the building, and while they say they accept the judge was right to exercise considerable caution, including unlawful protest outside the hotel, the Court of Appeal saying he nonetheless gave weight that protests were occurring and weighed them in the balance, and that they say that this was a worrying part of the protest and a worrying part of the judgment. They also said in the application that was put forward by the likes of Somani Hotels and also on behalf of the Home Secretary, and they ruled that that this runs, there was a feeling that the decision here would run the risk of acting as impetus for other protests, that there was a risk of encouraging further lawlessness, that the judge did not appear, they say, to consider this risk. They mentioned, as of course Mike White mentioned just not short ago, around the decisions of the fact that the applications had not been put forward in the other times that this hotel had been used, and this police presence here very much awaiting what might well happen on the back of this appeal decision, on the back of the Home Secretary winning this appeal put forward. There was a reference to the fear of Epping residents and the fear of crime. They say that that was properly taken into account because it was described by the judge in the initial ruling as having limited weight. They stood by that decision, but already in what seemingly is a local member of the public confronting some of the police here, already tensions high outside the hotel.
OK, Jack Carson, thank you very much, joining us live from outside the Bell Hotel in Epping, where a few members of the public have started to gather, and there appeared to be a little bit of a clash with police officers. I believe we can now be joined by Peter Tatchell for his reaction to the news that the Home Office is victorious, essentially, in this. The 138 male asylum seekers can now stay in Epping. What do you make of that?
Well, the judgment today hinged on the fact that the Epping District Council did not follow due process and proper procedures. That was the issue, and that's a matter of law. But no one needs to panic, because there will be a full court judgment on this issue in October. So I think at the moment, the asylum applicants can stay. It would have been very stupid to move them out by the early September, only to have them perhaps be allowed to come back in October. That would have been a logistic nightmare for the Home Office. But the bigger issue really is the government should allow asylum applicants to work, to get jobs, to support themselves while their applications are being considered. That way, they would work and contribute to the economy. They'd pay tax and national insurance. They'd buy their own food, they'd pay for their own accommodation, and that would resolve the issue of these hostels and hotels. They should not be in these hotels and hostels. They should have their own accommodation and pay for it themselves. Okay. The way to do that is to get a job, which many of them want to do.
Peter, that wouldn't, unfortunate with that situation, it wouldn't affect the draw factor of coming over, and we already have many British families already homeless. In theory, this is a win for the government, but it's not a good look, and it's maybe one ministers are going to have to deal with. The judge mentioned there's a hierarchy, the hierarchy of rights debate is unattractive. But unfortunately, it's accurate, because that is where we are now. This has actually pitted the rights of asylum seekers, many here illegally, against the rights of local residents, certainly in Epping at the moment, but potentially across the country. What do you say to that?
Well, that's just simply not true. You know, if those asylum...
Which bit of it isn't true?
Well, if the asylum applicants would be removed from the Bell Hotel, local residents wouldn't suddenly pile in there and start using the hotel. It's a hotel for visitors to the area. So it's got no impact on local accommodation. And I agree, we need more and better accommodation for local people.
Your comment, Peter, was that migrants should be allowed to work and live in their own accommodation. We don't have enough accommodation for British families as it is at the moment. And this was down to the ECHR ruling that the rights of migrants do trump those of the people in Epping, and to a wider extent the rest of the country. That is going to be the debate that is going to come out of this.
I don't agree. It's migrants or refugees versus local people. That's a false analogy. I agree.
But that is exactly the view of the Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch. She has released a statement in the last few moments, Peter, saying that Keir Starmer has shown that he puts the rights of illegal immigrants above the rights of the British people, who just want to feel safe in their towns and communities.
Well, we don't know whether the people in the Bell Hotel are illegal immigrants or not. You know, they have come here illegally, but they may have genuine claims of serious persecution in Iran, in Russia, in Afghanistan, and so on. And secondly, we also need to remember that, you know, it is a part of due process. We have to follow the law. The law exists to protect everyone. And I think that, you know, at the end of the day, there are going to be people who are, in many cases, who come here illegally because all the safe legal routes are closed. You know, there are no safe legal routes to get to the UK. So, for example, I have people in Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, who have suffered attempts to kill them, who have been arrested, tortured, and even gang raped. They cannot get visas to come to Britain lawfully. The UK does not issue refugee visas, and that is why people have to resort to illegal methods.
Okay. In the case, it was said, Peter, that this is protecting vulnerable individuals, as you say, who are fleeing war and famine and torture. What about the vulnerable individuals, the young girls who we know are victims of alleged sex assaults in this country at the hands of migrants? What about their vulnerability? Do they not count?
Absolutely. That's totally and absolutely wrong. But then again, the number of refugees and migrants who commit these crimes is very small considering the overall number. And I would say it's comparable to the British indigenous population. There are, unfortunately, sex fiends and criminals in all sections of society.
But we're running out of time, but we don't have to import anymore. Peter Tatchell, always good to talk to you. Thank you very much. OK, now we are going to... Can I just read it? Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick has posted on X saying, "This is an extremely disappointing decision. Yvette Cooper used taxpayer money, your money, to keep open a hotel housing illegal migrants. The government's lawyers argued accommodating illegal migrants was in the national interest. In court, they said the right of illegal migrants to free hotels is more important than the rights of the British people."
And in the last few moments, we've heard from Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK. He says the government has used the ECHR against the people of Epping. Illegal migrants have, Nigel Farage says, more rights than the British people under Starmer. That's the views of Nigel Farage there.
OK, just quickly, Jack Hadfield, you have reported live from Epping and several of these sites around the country. What do you make of this tonight and today, and how do you think it's going to go down with those people?
Well, I don't think it's surprising that the appeals court has made this decision. You know, you could see that this was on the way because obviously they use so many procedural points of law here. And again, you know, this is because of the European Convention on Human Rights. One thing, the Human Rights Act, they specifically pointed to Article 3, where they said that the government has a duty to house asylum seekers. Well, a lot of people are going to be asking, if the government has a duty to house asylum seekers in 4-star hotels in some cases, why do they not have a duty to house all of the homeless people who are here in this country who have nowhere to stay? Surely they have more of a right to emergency housing than people who come across the channel and, as in many cases, have been charged with committing sexual assaults, rapes, robberies, murders, all sorts of horrible crimes. You know, I think Jenrick put it rightly there that, you know, that the government has said that they are prioritising the rights of asylum seekers over the rights of the British people. And that's going to be the reaction from people in Epping right now. Obviously, we saw some of them were gathering. I believe there is going to be a protest. I think there was one planned on Sunday. I think there may be a flash protest scheduled later on this evening. If there is, I'll make my way down there to cover that. They're going to be extremely angry, especially because obviously one of the things that the judge has said, well, in order to stop these protests, well, instead of moving the dangerous asylum seekers out to the hotels, they should use the powers of the police to crack down on peaceful democratic protests. They've been talking about unlawful protests there. When I've been on the ground, I've barely seen a hint of unlawfulness. Most of the actual unlawfulness, frankly, I've seen the police repeatedly punch people in the face who do not agree to Article 14 movements away out from outside the Britannia Hotel. I've seen that happen on 2 occasions.
Of course, the police would probably deny that they would do that deliberately, just to put that out there. But Catherine, a final words to you. Although it's a victory for the Home Office, there is significant political opposition for the Labour government here. So they're not really out of the woods yet, are they?
Not out of the woods. That's exactly the phrase that I was going to say, Cameron. Yes, the Home Office will be breathing a sigh of relief. They've got out of that immediate problem of where to put 138 migrants by the 12th of September. There'll be the case in October, of course. But now what's happening, what we're seeing already...
Sorry, just to interrupt, we've got a statement from Epping Council. Sorry, Catherine, let's go live.
While the Court of Appeal has lifted the temporary injunction, the case for the final injunction is still to be heard. Our battle on behalf of our residents will continue. A few weeks from now, we will be back in court, where we trust the strength of our case will still prevail. Epping Forest has always given the Home Office much cause for reflection. We understand government faces a dilemma, but that should not be at the expense of local communities. Planning law may seem dull, it might seem boring, but it goes to the heart of the relationship between local communities and good government. It enshrines the rights of local people to have a say within their own communities, and it should not be set aside lightly. The government can still listen. It needs to understand and take responsibility for the events that have taken place in Epping over the past 6 weeks, for the trauma and disruption brought upon our community. The battle is not over, and we will continue the fight. It is nothing less than the people of Epping would expect and deserve. Thank you very much.
What's your message to the protesters? What's your message to the protesters, Councillor?
OK, that was Councillor Ken Williamson saying the battle for our residents will continue. Clearly, they are not giving up the fight.
Yes, indeed. It may be, on a strictly legal level, it is a really important win for the Home Office, but to all intents and purposes, it's not a win. OK, we are joined now in the studio by Patrick Christie, who is sitting in for Martin Daubney this afternoon. Patrick, huge afternoon, huge decision. Lots of people already very angry. What do you make of what's happened?
Yeah, I mean, it's a complete disaster in a sense for the government because they have allowed the ECHR to be used, essentially, it could be, in the words of Nigel Farage, against the people of Epping. Some would argue against the people of Britain because the Epping hotel there had ramifications right across the country for every single hotel, of course. There's also that argument about whose rights trump whose, whether or not it's people in the asylum hotels, whether or not it's the rights of locals. There's also some comments made by the judge, which is that, you know, he said that he doesn't want it to seem as though public protests, legal or otherwise, could essentially force through some decisions. I question that. I worry about that because I have several serious worries for our country today. I worry that we have ended up in a situation now where tensions are so high, there is distrust in a government, and it could at least be seemed, anyway, that the government has decided to go against the will of the people. And in the words of Esther McVeigh, as well, as a regular here, a prominent Conservative politician, you know, she said that it might not be literally true, but there's at least the kind of perception of there being some kind of left-wing establishment stitch-up here against people. And that is a very, very concerning place to be as a society. You know, it's important to say this is not over, obviously. They can go and there'll be another case, I think it's in October, I believe. So we'll have to watch this space. But you're going to see very, very, very strong reactions here on both sides of it all. I mean, it's a remarkable day. We're going to be picking this apart, look, for the next 3 hours. I mean, this is the story.
Yeah.
So it might be Epping, but really it's about the entire country.
Well, it is about the entire country, Patrick, because we've had so many GB News viewers and listeners get in touch. Chris in Tyneside in the last few minutes, she says that the Home Office may have won the battle, but the war is not lost, and this country's people will not back down. And I think that is the feeling across the country.
Yeah, 100%. You know, and you know, I hope we don't see anything like nasty scenes or anything like that, of course. But you know, we are in a situation, clearly, where I think the people feel incredibly frustrated. They've made their voices and their opinions clear. And that, by the way, is not borne out singularly by protests outside hotels. It's borne out by official opinion polls about how people feel about migrant hotels, about how people feel about immigration, both legal and illegal. And I think for Yvette Cooper and for the government to have taken some of the legal arguments that they decided to here, not singularly making it about planning, which is fundamentally what the case is, but also things like using that ECHR, raising those questions about whose rights trump whose, making it clear that allegations, and they are allegations, but allegations of very serious sexual assault are not in themselves enough to warrant the closure of a migrant hotel, that will really concern people. And I don't know, maybe the British public feel as though they're kind of being backed into a corner a little bit here.
Well, I think, I mean, there are over 200 cases currently going on with residents of migrant hotels. We don't know that they are all illegal migrants, but they are residents of the migrant hotels. And we keep coming, I personally keep coming back to this comment used by the government as an argument. There is a national interest in ensuring vulnerable individuals, namely asylum seekers, are accommodated. Well, my question is, what about the vulnerable individuals, in particular the women and the girls in our towns and cities up and down the country? Okay, so let's go back to the court to join Mark White to find out any more on this story. Mark White.
Well, there's no doubt this is a huge relief for the Home Office. We're still waiting for an official reaction from the Home Secretary to this appeal court decision handed down at the Royal Courts of Justice today, but it means effectively that the 138 asylum seekers who are being housed at the Bell Hotel in Eping are going nowhere anytime soon. They will stay there until we have a substantive hearing, a trial that's due to take place here on the 22nd of October, so about 7 weeks from now. And that particular case will then examine in very great detail the case that Eping Forest District Council has tried to bring here. Of course, this was an interim injunction that they were seeking, so effectively to have these asylum seekers removed until that more substantive hearing. So there is another opportunity for a more substantive hearing, potentially to go the way of Eping Forest District Council when that is heard in October. Although, having said that, listening to the ruling handed down by those 3 appeal court judges, I thought it was pretty withering in terms of the way they took apart the ruling, the judgment handed down last Tuesday by Mr. Justice Eyre, saying that he hadn't really taken into consideration a number of key factors that they believed he should have. They described some of his deliberation as seriously flawed, not taking into account, for instance, issues around the fact that Eping Forest District Council had not at any stage contacted the Somani hotels to say to them that they were in breach of planning laws, that they were taking this enforcement action against them. And the first that they knew about it was when, of course, the papers were served on them, telling them that there was to be this bid for a High Court injunction, and that left them very little time to respond. And of course, they also say subsequently very little time for the Home Secretary and the Home Office to respond to that as well. So as far as the Home Secretary is concerned now, they have been included as party to this main trial on October the 22nd. That was another victory for Yvette Cooper today, as the appeal court judges said that Mr. Justice Eyre had also erred in denying her the opportunity to be heard last Tuesday. You remember we had what was a farcical situation where the judge in that case, Mr. Justice Eyre, sat down. He was about to give his ruling, and at that point, you had Home Office judges, Home Office lawyers, I should say, trying to argue that they should be heard in this case. At that point, the judge said that they would not be heard, that it was kind of, as he saw it, irrelevant to the ruling that he was about to hand down anyway. Well, the appeal court judges here said that as far as they were concerned, they felt the judge, Mr. Justice Eyre, was wrong to rule that the Home Secretary could not be heard through her legal team on this issue, because she has a statutory obligation here. There are wider ramifications of the decision to grant this injunction, that they felt it was important for the Home Secretary through her legal team to be heard, because had she been heard, had the legal team been heard, that would have better informed the decision by that judge, Mr. Justice Eyre, back last Tuesday in handing down his ruling.
Yes, look, Mark White, thank you very, very much. Mark White, our Home and Security Editor there. I'm going to ask you to stick around for me, Mark, please, because I'll come back to you in just a second. But yes, it is me, Patrick Christie's, covering for 3 till 6 p.m. today. I just want to summarise for you, if you are just joining us, well, the court there has passed a ruling that the Home Office is going to be allowed to appeal against the closure of the Bell Hotel in Epping. Let's give you some reaction to that. So the Conservatives, led by Kemi Badenoch, have urged all of their local councils to, quote, continue to take legal action. So continue to fight on this. James Cleverly, also a Conservative, has tweeted in the last few moments, I'm sure that Yvette Cooper and the Home Office officials think this is good news. It really isn't. Cutting local people and their elected representatives out of the loop isn't a good look. If we have a look at the angle that Nigel Farage is taking on this now, the leader of Reform, he's saying the government used the ECHR against their own people. Asylum seekers' rights trump Brits. And that is quite a devastating thing to see, isn't it? If the government has used the ECHR against its own people and that illegal migrants now have more rights than the British people. All of that, I don't need to remind you, comes amongst the backdrop of Nigel Farage's mass deportations policy recently, during which he vowed to leave the ECHR. You contrast that with this government, led by Keir Starmer, with the Attorney General being Lord Hermer, who has vowed to never leave the ECHR. Some of the concerning aspects to this for most people here, there was a focus on the vulnerability of asylum seekers throughout this trial, put forward by the Home Office's lawyers, reinforced by the summing up there of that judge. I know many people might be thinking, well, what about vulnerable local people? There was also an argument made by the Home Office about allegations, and they are just allegations, of serious sexual assault, in this case, allegedly involving a girl in school uniform, should not be significant enough to warrant the closure of a migrant hotel. Now, OK, every single person is innocent until proven guilty. People wouldn't want people making false allegations in order to get hotels closed. However, I worry that that sets a very concerning precedent there. And the judge also made the point, did he not, that protests can't be seen to sway government policy. There is another aspect to this, which is the Home Office's laziness. It was said in court yesterday by the lawyer for the Home Office that Yvette Cooper was a little bit slow to react to this because it was August, and the implication being there that she was, of course, interrailing with Ed Balls at the time that the initial judgment was made. We're going to be taking you back to Mark White in a second. We're going to be going to the Bell Hotel where Jack Carson is. I am very keen to get an aspect for you on some of the legal questions around this. So both the technicalities of law, but also, and I want to make this abundantly clear, that, you know, there is absolutely no indication whatsoever that any of the judges in this case are in any way compromised or anything like that at all. We have to believe that the judiciary is beyond reproach at all. But there were questions, loud question marks yesterday, just raised by the man that we're going to talk to anyway, about Lord Justice being there, people saying that reportedly years ago he was a 28-year Labour Party member, Fabian Society chairman, and the founder of Matrix Chambers, which is the same chambers that Lord Hermer attended. Of course, again, I will stress there is no indication of any bias there. It is simply something to note. Let's give you the moment that Lord Justice Bean made his ruling.
Therefore, we grant permission to appeal both to Somani and to the Home Secretary against the grant of the interim injunction. We allow the appeals and we set aside the injunction imposed on 19 August 2025.
Well, let's take you right back to the scene where that ruling was made with our Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, I know that you've kind of been across the technicalities of it, but can you just explain the significance of this ruling, really? Because it's not just about Epping, is it? What was ruled about Epping, really, the whole point of it was that it could have consequences around the country, wasn't it? Which is why this became such a big deal. So what is the significance of this now?
Well, I think it's hugely significant in that we'd already heard, remember, after the decision, the ruling that was handed down last Tuesday by Mr Justice Eyre, a number of local authorities coming out to say that they were going to seek legal advice about challenged themselves over asylum-seeking hotels in their particular local authority areas. And there was real concern about the floodgates being opened for similar challenges. And we know that Nigel Farage, the Reform leader, had instructed the local authorities that Reform is now in control of, again, to look at whether they could mount similar challenges as well. So there was real concern over that. And indeed, in the ruling that the Court of Appeal judges have just handed down, they said that while Mr Justice Eyre on Tuesday of last week was right to consider the issues around crime and disorder at the hotel in Eping, he should have, and he didn't, consider the wider implications of protests that could be sparked by a successful injunction, because of very many more protests that could come as those floodgates were opened, effectively, is what the Court of Appeal judges were saying, Patrick, that the judge should have given some weight to the other side of the argument on that many, many more people could be emboldened by the decision handed down last week and seek to influence their local authorities by carrying out, at the very least, noisy and boisterous protests at hotels in their areas that are housing migrants.
Yes, well, indeed. Now, shortly we're going to go to the Bell Hotel where Jack Carson is. I would expect that we're probably going to end up seeing a little bit of reaction there. Obviously, we hope that anything that takes place at the Bell Hotel, or indeed other locations this evening in the wake of that ruling, is peaceful. People being urged to still make their voices heard, of course, and still councils to still try to take legal action. But yeah, just emphasise for us, please, Mark, it's not over, this, is it? Because they have got another opportunity, I think, in October, where essentially we're going to have it out in court again, aren't we?
Yeah, that's the important aspect of this. It's worth imparting. This was originally an injunction, an interim injunction, so a temporary injunction, by the council to have the asylum seekers removed from the Bell Hotel because of their concerns about the continuing protest, the potential for disorder, the fact that they believed that so many hotels were in breach of the planning code, so they could be removed, and then it could be taken to a more substantive hearing on the 22nd of October, so some 7 weeks from now. And at that court hearing, then the matters could be more fully explored. Having said that, of course, although the decision handed down today does not impact that court case, that will still take place. To hear those appeal court judges shoot down so many of the aspects of the ruling from Mr Justice Eyre last Tuesday, I'm not sure if you were lawyers acting on behalf of Epping Forest District Council that you would be particularly hopeful that you are going to have a successful outcome at the more substantive hearing. But having said that, it is a more substantive hearing. They will have heard what the appeal court judges said today. It will give them time to more properly then prepare their counter-arguments for that hearing on the 22nd of October. So I'm sure they will put their case very forcibly that they want this hotel taken out of use as an asylum hotel because of the concerns within the community, and of course on this narrow point of law, because so many hotels did not abide by the planning process that they should have. They did not put specifically a planning application for change of use in April of this year, when once again it began housing asylum seekers. Remember, Patrick, that since 2020 on 3 separate occasions this hotel has housed asylum seekers, and previously the council had spoken to so many hotels, had told them to seek a change of use planning permission. They had done that in 2023, but then hadn't heard back from the council. There had been no conclusion to that application until 2024, when they withdrew it because the hotel was no longer at that point housing asylum seekers.
Quite, Mark. Thank you very, very much. Mark White there, who's GBNews' home and security editor outside the court for us. Let's go straight to the Bell Hotel. There is a concern, really, that this ruling might mark a new low reputationally, I worry, for the government, because whatever the legal points are, every single person knows that there is a big question mark over perception and public perception on things, and the perception could well be that it's government versus the people. That's what some politicians are saying online. The perception could be that it's illegal migrants having more rights than Brits. The perception could be of some kind of left-wing establishment stitcher. But I'll throw it over to you, Jack. You're at the scene now. Can you just what it's like you are at the moment? I don't people there now. It's obviously only coming up to 13 minutes past 3 in the afternoon. What's going on there at the Bell Hotel?
Well, not too many members of the public quite yet, but there has still been a bit of a reaction here from a local councillor, Shane Yerrell, who's a Conservative councillor on Epping Forest District Council for the Waltham Abbey West Ward. He seemed to confront police a little bit when he first got here. Is raw emotion, really, I guess you could describe it as, coming out after he learnt of the decision, and seemingly gave a bit of an interview, a statement to the media that have gathered here, as have we, and seemingly his distress at the decision, his emotion at the decision of the Court of Appeal to overturn the temporary injunction. I put it to him how he felt that in that appeal hearing, in that verdict, we heard how the initial decision to not place great weight on the fear of Epping residents over kind of crime, whether that was properly taken into account. The court describing it as having limited weight, that they agreed with that decision in the initial upholding. But I put that to him, and he said that was not true, that people here did have those fears. I also put it to him around the incentivisation of protest, that in that ruling there was a sense that the injunction, that this would run the risk of acting as an impetus for other protests. The initial decision would run the risk of acting as an impetus for other protests, that it would be a risk of encouraging further lawlessness. The Court of Appeal saying that the judge did not appear to consider this risk, but seemingly when I put that to the local councillor, he said that the decision today would in fact increase that risk, that would in fact incentivise protest. We'll hopefully be able to bring you a clip of him a little bit later on. There hasn't, as I said, been quite much of a public reaction here yet. You did say, of course, Patrick, it's still early in the afternoon, but we know and have seen over the past few weeks just exactly how much Epping residents and how strongly the Epping residents feel around the decision to house 138 asylum seekers here. We know that there are ongoing trials that we've covered this week here on GB News, and we await, of course, for those to continue. But there is still a sense here in Epping that they are not being given the justice that they say they wanted. Now, in a statement outside the court, the member of Epping Forest District Council Cabinet, Councillor Ken Williamson, said that he was deeply disappointed by this outcome, saying that they've brought the wider asylum seeker debate into a sharp national focus, saying that the concern and motivation of Epping Forest District Council throughout this has been the well-being of local residents, and they say where they have had clarity and resolution, we now have doubt and confusion. But they said the battle is not over and we will continue the fight. Of course, the council could well still be granted an injunction following the full hearing of the legal claim, which is due to be heard in October. We heard in that Court of Appeal decision, didn't we, around the practicalities of with the temporary injunction, if that was to be upheld, moving asylum seekers out of the hotel for what could be a period of only 6 weeks. And they say say that there was a lack of weight given to the practicalities of that in the initial ruling. So here at Epping Forest, there has been some initial reaction from local councillors and politicians, and of course, still concern here remaining.
Yeah, OK, Jack, thank you very, very much. Jack Carson there for us at the Bell Hotel. We will go back to Jack throughout the course of the day, and I imagine as well into this evening. I just want to read you something that's just come through to me in the last couple of minutes. This is Dame Angela Eagle, who is the Minister for Border Security and Asylum. She's released a statement. It's relatively lengthy. I'll just read it all to you. We inherited a chaotic asylum accommodation system costing billions. This government will close all hotels by the end of this Parliament, and we appealed this judgment so hotels like the Bell Hotel can be exited in a controlled and orderly way that avoids the chaos of recent years that saw 400 hotels open at a cost of £9 million a day. The number of hotels has almost halved since its peak in 2023, and we have brought down costs by 15%, saving £700 million and putting us on track to save £1 billion a year by 2028 to 2029. I'm just going to come in at that point because there's a couple of aspects there. The vast majority of the hotel closures during the time frame that she referenced were under the Conservative government. They were not under the Labour Party. The other problem for her here in this statement is that whilst we may have slightly fewer asylum hotels, we have more people in them. So there's that. And when it says here that it's going to bring down the costs by £1 billion a year by 2028 to 2029. Well, I fear there that what the government is doing is being a little bit economical with the truth, because I don't think they are calculating in that the cost of paying the rental accommodation at houses of multiple occupancy, the cost of paying the legal applications for people and their subsequent appeals, and indeed the subsequent cost of any benefits that someone most likely will end up living on, certainly in at least the first few years that they reside in this country. Is that really being accounted for in their maths? I'll just finish her statement here. We're also working hard to relieve pressure on the system and striking back at criminal people smuggling gangs at every stage, including returning more than 35,000 people who have no right to be here. And look, I've got to come in again here, because that 35,000 people, it turns out that large numbers of them were paid to leave, and it's not immediately obvious whether or not any of them are channel migrants. And the deal with the French, the so-called one-in, one-out deal, that's not happened yet. It's not got off the ground, quite literally. So there we go. Also, she goes on to say, it will take some time to fix the broken system we inherited, but the British public deserve nothing less, and we will not stop until the job is done. Very shortly, we're going to be going to Stephen Barrett, who is one of the lawyers who is really giving some pushback on this. Lawyers for Borders, I think, is the group that he is part of, alongside Robert Jerry. But before that, I think we're going to hear quickly from political commentator Matthew Stadland. Matthew, thank you very, very much. Your initial reaction to this? We've got comments here, certainly from Nigel Farage, is the government using the ECHR against their own people. Basically, illegal migrants have more rights than Brits. Your views? OK.
The sort of response, Patrick, good to see you, that you might expect from Nigel Farage. That's the sort of response you might expect from Farage, a populist response. Of course, as you know, and as viewers know, the government has a legal responsibility to house asylum seekers. It is government's policy, as has been made repeatedly clear, to shut down these asylum hotels by the end of the Parliament, in other words, by 2029. So that is government policy, Patrick.
OK, sorry, I do think the connection's a little bit bad there, I'm afraid, Matthew. I'm not quite hearing what you're saying. I think we might just leave it there. Sorry, I couldn't quite make out what you were saying there, but thank you very, very much. Anyways, Matthew Stadland there, political commentator. I believe we can now speak with barrister and writer Stephen Barrett for a bit more reaction. Stephen, thank you very much. OK, first things first, do you agree with this ruling?
No. No, I think it's deeply flawed on its own logical terms.
So let's see one of the, and I think that whilst I think the good people of Eping will feel very aggrieved, I think the district council who did everything they could will feel very aggrieved, but I'm going to add another man to the list, and I think Mr. Justice Eyre has every right to feel aggrieved by this, frankly, dismissing of his 120-paragraph reasoned judgment, where he went through everything. They were very rude to him on his conclusions. They were rude to him because he didn't let the Home Office join. Now, in all the other preceding cases that had happened before this, the Home Office didn't join. Okay, so it's not normal for the Home Office to try and join. The Home Office was aware of this and didn't join at any correct point in time. He had the hearing and then on a Friday and gave judgment. So the interim case is finished. And then the Home Office make an application on the Monday to join, effectively to relitigate the hearing that they'd had on the Friday. I think he quite rightly said, go trot on. I mean, that's clearly incompetent from the Home Office, but he was criticised for that. And so it was suggested that because he hadn't had the benefit of their wisdom, he had made errors himself. But there's a a very rude logical error that I think your viewers and listeners can go through quite simply. Firstly, they've lumped all the protesters together. Okay, so the Boston Antifa protesters, who are clearly, something is behind them, and they are violent and agitators, they're lumped together with the concerned mums that we can see on screen now. Now, that's not fair, and they commit violence. And so the judge has said, all protesters together, and by the way, some of the protesters are violent, so they're all bad. And he said that the judge made a mistake in granting the injunction because that incentivized more protests. Now, that's factually inaccurate, Patrick. After the injunction was granted, they stopped protesting at Eping. So it's just not true. The granting of an injunction did not incentivise more protests.
Oh, Stephen, can I just come in on that? Because I actually think that's a really, really interesting point. I was listening to that ruling, as you would expect, just out here before. And that stood out to me, this idea that, well, we cannot be seen to have protests driving government policy. But I went to Eping, to that Bell Hotel, the day that the injunction was granted, and the only people there were locals, and a lot of women, a lot of younger people. There was no stand-up to racism. There was nothing of it whatsoever. So you are, I believe, right to make the point that actually the protests had stopped, hadn't they? Yes. So that's not a. Do you think that this judge, which we might come on to actually in a second, Lord Justice Bean, might have erred there a little bit?
Yes, I think he has, and I think being very rude to Mr. Justice Eyre, who was the first instance judge, doesn't really cover that up. This is logically irrational. Also, let's just admit it on telly now. The actions of Lord Justice Bean are going to incentivise more protests this weekend. If he's claiming to be the one shutting down protests, that's not what's going to happen. He doesn't seem to understand normal human beings. And I worry that we have a self-selecting elite that simply don't seem to understand ordinary human beings. Obviously, the people in Eping are now going to be really upset. Obviously, they are going to protest. I think they will do so lawfully, because I've seen the good people of Eping, and I think wearing pink T-shirts is very wise. I personally advise them to take chocolate digestive biscuits and to give those to police officers to make it very clear they are angry at disconnected elite figures like Lord Justice Bean, not angry at individual police officers who are just doing their duty and keeping everybody safe. So I think we can have lawful protest, and it's actually a really dishonest and frankly cruel thing for Lord Justice Bean to have done, to lump all the protesters together.
Fine. Now, can I just come in again there? Because actually, yes, again, Stephen, I think you make a great point, which is that, look, anyone with a brain in their head is now going to have fears and concerns that an already incredibly tense situation that looked as though maybe there'd been a light at the end of the tunnel dangled in front of people, which has now been snuffed out, could obviously have some consequences. And, every single person wants whatever demonstration or whatever is done, whether it's at the Bell Hotel or anywhere else, in fact, this coming weekend, to be done in a very, very peaceful way. And it's important to make that incredibly clear, and for people not to let themselves down, because a lot of people are going to be out there now waiting for something really bad to happen and use that up as some kind of straw man argument to then tarnish everybody else as well. There is a point that I want to make, and I want to be very, very clear on this before I ask you this question, Stephen. I read an article that you wrote last night. I read it with great interest. And it was about Lord Justice Bean. Now, the thing I want to be clear about is that we have to believe in this country that anybody who is in Lord Justice Bean's position is completely beyond reproach, they are completely neutral, and that their judgment is based, on any case, singularly around their interpretation of the law or just the law itself. So I don't want to be seen like to be implying anything here. But you raise certain questions that about the perception of him and just some facts about his past. And I just wondered if you might be able to just run us through what some of those things were that you noticed.
Yes, so I'm not raising... We have two types of bias in law, and with that, one is actual bias and one is the perception of bias. I'm not saying that there is actual bias. I mean, if anything, having listened to the judgment, I think Lord Justice Bean got it wrong because his logic is utterly flawed. So I'm not saying he's biased, I'm just saying his logic is completely flawed. But there is then the perception of bias, and that has two limbs. So the first limb is quite obvious. It's said to be when a judge is acting as the judge in his own case. So if the dispute was about who owned his house, then that judge would obviously have the perception of bias. If it's about shares he's interested in or a company that he's a part owner of, obviously the judge should recuse themselves and not sit on that because there's a perception of bias, even if there's no real bias. That's very important. And what I've said is that with Lord Justice Bean's political connections, which are more than just Labour Party membership, although that was for 28 years, he led the Fabian Society, which is a subset of Labour, which is currently in power, currently the philosophy of the government. And there are a number of other connections I've set out, that the second limb risks very, very firmly being fulfilled on the perception of bias, which is where the judge looks like a friend to one of the parties in the case. And that party would obviously be the government, which is run by the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, whose policy it is to challenge us, to keep the migrants in the hotel. So I do worry that there is a perception of bias. On the judgment, Patrick, there's one other outrage I really want to flag to you if we've got time. And that's that the judge says, the tin-earedness of this, the government said that not everybody's equal and the migrants' rights are more important than the residents', basically. And the judge, I think quite rightly, maybe his mind was turned on correctly at that point, that was an unattractive argument. But then he went on to say that the residents of Eping who are afraid of crime, very, very serious crimes which have been alleged and which could occur. So these mums and girls they're not hysterical. These are valid claims. He said that they are relevant, but that they are outweighed by the needs of the government and the migrants. Now, I just think that is an absolutely outrageous thing to do, because that is a clear hierarchy of rights. It is, if my white rights outweigh yours, then I'm higher up in a hierarchy. So they're doing this thing where they say this isn't happening, and anyway, it's a good thing. Which I just don't understand whether they know that they're doing it deliberately, whether it's purely accidental. I don't understand where this comes from, but it seems to be part of left-wing philosophy, which this judge is steeped in. And this, again, gives rise to the perception of bias. I really wish that another judge had heard this case, because we need people to have trust and faith and confidence in our judges. I do.
How is it decided what judges hear which cases, Steve?
Well, it's almost, it's pretty opaque now, and since the Blair reforms, it's all got a bit confused. I suspect it's ultimately with the Lady Chief Justice, but I also suspect that the Court of Appeal just has rotas. Take a look, just to be practical, Patrick, this is August. Most judges will be on holiday right now, so there won't be many.
I hate hearing this. Like, the world stops in August. You know what I mean? Oh, sorry, we couldn't do this because it's August. Or sorry, I'm sorry, if you're the Home Secretary, you don't have to go interrailing with your husband during August. You don't have to do it at all, especially if your husband happens to be had balls, of course. And we've got a shortage of everything. The world doesn't stop. We're all at work. Most people watching and listening to this now will have done a bit of work this morning. I might be going to work this evening. The world does not stop because it's August. But just on that, sorry, Stephen. Nigel Farage is coming out and saying that this is the government using the ECHR against its own people, and arguing that the rights of illegal immigrants trump the rights of Brits. Our last guest, Matthew Stadlen, whilst I could hear him, was saying that, look, this is a populist argument. It's not true. Ultimately, the government has the statutory duty to house these people. Who's right there? Is Nigel Farage right to say that the government used the ECHR against its own people and that now the rights of illegal immigrants are worth more than the rights of Brits?
Yes, well, Nigel is clearly right. Nigel, in your summary, and I don't know if this were his exact words, says that the rights of the migrants trump the rights of the residents of Eping. Well, in the words of the judge, they outweigh the rights and interests of the... So I don't see how you can argue that that isn't a hierarchy of rights. If you have any commitment to formal logic and telling the truth, then I don't see how you can argue against that. And in terms of what's going on, again, don't let them hide, Patrick. They only have a statutory duty because they gave themselves one. They only have an obligation in international law because they gave themselves one. They can take it away. So this is just nonsense. This is our government is acting like a child. Oh, I can't control things. I'm not in charge. I don't really run the country. And that sort of ran through this judgment today, Patrick. There was a lot of pathetic, well, if we move the migrants on, where would they go to? And what if we didn't have more capacity for more migrants in our hotels? It's like, why do we have migrants in our hotels? We don't have to, Patrick. We don't have to run this way. Don't let them ever argue that the law makes them do anything, because they have fundamental control over what the law is. Okay, now they might get it wrong. They might mess up like the last government did with the Rwanda plan, where they got it technically wrong. So the Supreme Court had to go, basically, I'm terribly sorry, but you have not drafted this properly. Go away and try again. You do actually have to draft law very well. It's complicated and technical. I always think the greatest analogy is computer code, because I think a lot of people understand that if you draft computer code badly, you'll get a really buggy piece of software, be that a game or a processor or whatever. You'll get bugs. And literally, we sort of get legal bugs when laws are badly drafted, and that's what the Rwanda plan was. That's why it was rejected. But ultimately, they are in control. And ultimately, the government needs to do something and stop saying the bigger boy did it and then left the mess for me. And I can't do anything for years and years and years and years and years because something reasons. Just do something.
Well, look, Stephen, thank you. Thank you very, very much. I suspect this won't be the last time we talk in the next few days anyway, but all the best. Stephen Barrett there is a barrister and writer. Just want to emphasise again that the government's line on this, or Dame Angela Eagle, she's come out and said that they inherited a mess. You're going to hear a lot about this particular number in the coming days from the government, and it's the number 35,000. They've been saying now for a number of weeks, if not months actually, that they have successfully deported 35,000 people. Well, that number has been static for a little while now, so I would argue, why hasn't it gone up? The other thing, of course, is that a lot of those are indeed voluntary, and we are yet to see any flights taking off with people back to France, because, of course, the French just give us a load more. I'll give you this clip now of the moment this ruling was carried out.
Therefore, we grant permission to appeal both to Somani and to the Home Secretary against the grant of the interim injunction.
OK, well, we're going to go over to Tatiana now, who's got your bulletins for you.
Patrick, thank you very much. The top stories, that breaking news that a temporary injunction that was set to block asylum seekers from being housed at the Bell Hotel in Essex has been overturned at the Court of Appeal. They can now stay beyond September the 12th. A councillor for Eping said the government needs to take responsibility for the trauma and disruption, he says, in the Essex town over recent weeks.
Battle on behalf of our residents will continue. A few weeks from now, we will be back in court, where we trust the strength of our case will still prevail.
Angela Rayner has reportedly saved £40,000 in stamp duty on her new seaside flat after telling tax authorities it was her main home. However, a spokesperson for Ms Rayner said she paid the correct duty owed on the purchase entirely properly and in line with all relevant requirements. And all young children in England and Wales will be offered a free chickenpox vaccine on the NHS from January next year. Those are the latest headlines. More in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
OK, right, loads more coming your way. Shortly, I'm going to take you back to that court where the decision was made in favour of the Home Office against essentially the people of Eping, I suppose.